Mhm. Good morning, Sharan sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning, Chandrachudan sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Dr. Sharan. Dr. Sharan sir, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Chandrachudan sir.
Good morning, Dr. Sharan.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
So all set, Nilma madam?
Yes, sir. Chup.
Hello, good morning, Dr. Avinash Kumbhar.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
Good
Dr.
morning,
Ambedkar
sir.
sir. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning,
Morning.
everyone.
How are you?
Ryan, thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
So, Dr. Sharan, how is the weather in Nagpur?
It's okay, sir. Fine, sir.
Just to break the silence.
Good morning to all.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
But sir, Nagpur controls the weather of the whole country, sir.
Yeah, it is epicenter of the country. Epicenter.
Yes, epicenter, right.
In ISIS activity also, it is epicenter.
हेलो हेलो हेलो
कोणत्या मोटरसायकलवर येतात तिथे आपण माझी
हालो, हालो,
मोटरसायकल नाही आली.
I think let us start. Mukula,
Yeah, sure.
Yes, ma'am.
are you there? Yes, please.
Start.
Yes, ma'am. I'm there. Yeah. Good
हेलो
morning.
हेलो
So shall we start, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah. So good morning, one and all. So today on the occasion
हेलो
of the
हेलो
first, yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
So today on the occasion of the
Yes,
first
you are.
foundation day of ISA's Pune chapter, we are organizing an online one-day seminar on modern analytical techniques. So may I now request Dr. Nilima Rajurkar ma'am, who is the chairperson of ISA's Pune chapter, to have her introductory talk. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mukula. Very good morning to all of you. Today, chief guest, Dr. Chandrachudan sir. Guest of honor, Dr. Raghav Saran sir. All dignitaries, invited speakers, EC members of Pune chapter, and dear participants. It is my pleasure to welcome you all for today's program. ISS was established in 1983 at BARC Mumbai, and now we have more than 3,000 members from different
जूम है ना
all over India and having 10 different chapters. Pune chapter was established in October 21 with an objective to reach different sectors of the society in order to promote science and technology. In order to achieve this, we are organizing lectures by eminent scientists, as well as we are also organizing the quiz competition, lecture competition, poster competition for PG students. And today's seminar is a part of it. I'm happy to mention that we are having 69 dynamic members in our chapter who are from university departments, from different national institutes such as
अमल करता रही रहा ना
ARI, IITM, and from colleges, industry, and hospitals. On the occasion of our first foundation day, we are organizing a seminar on modern analytical techniques, and there are 6 speakers who have expertise in their respective fields. And I'm glad to mention that there are more than 100 participants registered who are from different parts from Pune city, as well as from Baramati, Bhor, Ahmednagar, Bhende, Nevasa, Shevgaon, Parner, Faltan, Loni, Mumbai, Jamner, Nagpur, Jalgaon. We also have participants from many other parts of India, such as Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Telangana, Warangal, Siliguri, and from Mauritius too. ISS Pune chapter has undertaken an initiative to bring a series of booklets on different analytical techniques, which will be useful to teachers, students, researchers, as well as chemists from the industries. The first booklet on nuclear analytical techniques by Dr. Nilima Rajurkar will be published in the next week. So thank you. And once again, welcome you all. Over to Mukula.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now, every auspicious occasion we do with the Deepa Prajwalan. Now, may I now request all the dignitaries to lighten the lamp virtually.
Anupa, please on this audio also. Anupa.
So thank you, all the dignitaries. Now we will have an ISAS Geet to begin with. Okay, so shall we move ahead, ma'am?
Anupa will share the screen, no? Wait.
Yeah.
Anupa, are you there? What happened? Wait for some time. No?
मी करू का मॅडम?
हा चालेल, हंडे सर तुम्ही करा.
मला फक्त हे करा, कुंभार सर.
ऍक्सेस द्या कुंभार सर शेअर स्क्रीनचा. ओके, अनुपा स्टार्टेड इट.
आवाज येत नाही ना.
No audio. No sound.
Mukula, proceed further.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
मॅडम शेअर करू
So,
का मॅडम
हा
yes.
करू का हॅलो
हा बोला ना.
मी करू का शेअर म्हटलं
झालं ना आता हे ना
हा, ठीक
इंट्रोडक्शन.
आहे. चालेल.
Okay. So
हा.
after this gig, now we are going to have the introduction of our chief guest and the guest of honor. May I now request Dr. Avinash Kumbhar, sir, to introduce our chief guest and the guest of honor. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mukula. Thank you all for organizing this very interesting workshop today. And it's my great pleasure to introduce the chief guest, Dr. P.P. Chandrachudan, the president of ISAS, who is a national expert in total knowledge management and management review and of development-oriented R&D innovation, neighborhood development, environmental studies. After his retirement from as a senior scientist at BARC and main R&D program coordinator in BRNS, Department of Atomic Energy, Government of India, he was instrumental in constituting the Kerala State Innovation Council, known as KDISC, was advisor R&D and professor of R&D management at PSN Group of Institutes, Tirunelveli, constituted and chaired the PSN National Award for Excellence in Development-Oriented Research, etc. Professor Chandrachudan carries with him a vast experience of practical knowledge management base developed over the past 51 years of his dynamic and eventful career in executing and promoting excellence and relevant development through multidisciplinary, multi-institutional R&D project activities. A postgraduate from the prestigious training school of BARC, 1969 to 70, from the 13th batch, and PhD from Bombay University, Dr. Chandrachudan is specialized in the engineering quality control field of non-destructive examination. He is a life fellow of the Indian Society for Non-Destructive Testing and internationally recognized expert in NDE. Dr. Chandrachudan has been responsible for planning, execution of engineering quality control and quality assurance work related to the manufacture of variety of specialized engineering equipment for the totally indigenous nuclear reactor Dhruva, BRC, and many landmark Indian nuclear power reactors executed at NPCIL and other process plants, R&D centers of Department of Atomic Energy, which are functioning currently all over India. He has trained several senior functionaries in NDE and under the IAEA programs. As a senior R&D program coordinator of BRNS DAE, he has been actively engaged in the mobilization, monitoring, and management of collaborative R&D programs in areas of interest to the various DAE units located all over India. He coordinated and executed over 1,000 research projects involving various national laboratories, universities, NITs, IITs, IISc, etc., located across the length and breadth of India. Topics of these research projects span over a host of multidisciplinary subjects that dealt with the basic research in science and engineering, basic research leading to technologies, development of advanced technologies, development of engineering processes and products, setting up of mega centers, CRPs, mega project centers of excellences for achieving development oriented in R&D in science and engineering for problem solving for the benefit of society. It's my great pleasure to introduce you, sir. Welcome to this workshop, and we look forward to your guidance as always. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, the ISAS Pune chapter life members have done their achievements during September 2021 and till October 2022. So may I now request Dr. Anupa Kumbhar ma'am to read the certificates of appreciation. Over to you, ma'am. Over to you, Anupa ma'am.
Anupa, full screen.
No sound, madam.
Anupa, full screen, please. Yeah.
Anupa ma'am, unmute yourself first. No sound.
Okay, ma'am, may I read if she has some technical issues?
Ayesha, you can display it. Ayesha?
Yes, ma'am.
You can share your screen.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, who is reading it?
You can read.
There is no...
Anupa, your mic is not working.
I think when 5G is fully implemented, it will be much better.
Let anybody can read it.
So,
Mukula, yeah, you can read it. I will share it, Mukula.
yeah, I'll start. Okay, so we will have our Professor S.F. Patil, who is ISS Honorary Fellow. Then we will have our own Dr. D. Amal Nerkar, who is an ISS Honorary Fellow. Then we will have Dr. Nilima Rajurkar ma'am for the Performance Excellence Award for outstanding technical and organizational skills displayed while conducting the ISS technical webinar series. We'll have Dr. Anupa Kumbhar, who is the recipient of late Principal V.K. Zog Award for the teachers by SPPU and the bronze medal by Chaitan Rasayan Saustha, Vijay University, as a recognition for her contribution in advancement and popularization of science. So we'll have then Dr. Aisha ma'am, will you please share the certificates one by one?
Okay.
Yeah. So we had Professor S.F. Patil, then Dr. Amal Nerkar.
I have some technical issue with my laptop. I have joined through Kumbhar sir's laptop now. Yes, Professor S.F. Patil is a former Vice Chancellor of Bharati Vidyapeeth Deemed University, former Chancellor of North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon, and former Head of the Department of Chemistry, Savitribai Phule Pune University, Pune. At present, he is an Executive Director, Internal Affairs, Research and Training at Bharati Vidyapeeth. He has received ISS Honorary Fellowship. I request Dr. P.P. Chandrachudan sir to felicitate him.
I think Patil sir is not there. He will be joining later. At that time, you can hand over the certificate.
Okay.
You can move to next one.
Yes. Can I have the next display, please?
Yeah. Is it visible, Anupa?
No.
Go to next slide. Make it full screen.
Ma'am, it is full screen from my side.
No, it's not full screen. Doesn't matter. Go to next slide.
I'll do it again.
Yes, now it is displayed.
Yeah.
Our second achiever is Professor D.P. Amalnerkar. He is the former Director of Center for Materials for Electronics Technology, Pune, and currently working as an Emeritus Professor at the Department of Technology, Savitribai Phule. He has received ISS Honorary Fellowship. I request Dr. P.P. Chandrachudan sir to felicitate him.
Beloved Professor Amalnerkar,
Namaste.
it is a great pleasure for ISS to hand over you this certificate of appreciation in view of a great contribution to the science and technology of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next achiever is Dr. Nilima Razulkar. She is former professor and head of chemistry department, former head of environmental science department of Savitribai Phule Pune University, and founder member of ISS Pune chapter. She has received Performance Excellence Award and a medal by ISS for her outstanding technical and organizational skills in conducting ISS webinar series. She has also been appointed as editor-in-chief of Journal of ISS and chief editor of an e-book of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav ISS webinar series. I request Dr. P.P. Chandrachudan sir to felicitate her. Aisha madam, can you please display her certificate?
Yeah.
Beloved Dr. Nilima Razulkar, as a senior member of the ISS family, and as a president, I am very happy to hand over this certificate appreciation to you. Indeed, you are an outstanding performer in our family. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much, sir.
Aisha madam, can we go to the next one? Yeah.
Yes. Please tell me, Anupa, if it is visible.
Go to next slide.
No, it's not yet.
It is visible, but go to, that's okay, fine.
Now is it okay?
Yeah.
Yes. Now
Mukula?
I think
Mukula, you can proceed.
Okay, so may I now, so we'll have now our Dr. Anupa Kumbhar ma'am, who is the recipient of late Principal V.K. Zog Award for the best teacher of SPPU and the bronze medal by the Chirantan Rasayan Shastra by Vidyasagar University as a recognition for her contribution in the advancement and popularization of science. So may I now request Dr. Raghav Saran to felicitate Dr. Anupa.
Dr. Anupa Kumbhar, it's a great pleasure to hand over you this certificate of appreciation, and I'm sure that you will keep the performance and flag flying high. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mukula. Aisha ma'am, can I have the next
Yes,
certificate,
please.
please?
Yes, please.
Our next achiever is Dr. Sunil Hande. He is an assistant professor at HV Desai College, Sangli, Pune, and a treasurer of ISS Pune chapter. Today, he is being felicitated for receiving ISS Performance Excellence Award for outstanding technical and organizational skills displayed while conducting the ISS Technical Webinar Series in 2022. I request Dr. Raghuvaran sir to felicitate him.
Dr. Sunil Hande, I am really very happy to hand over you this certificate and your exemplary technical organization skill you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Our next achiever is Dr. Manisha Bora. She is an associate professor at Bharatiya Jain Sangatnas College, Wagholi, and joint treasurer of ISS Pune chapter. She has received the Performance Excellence Award for outstanding technical and organizational skills displayed while conducting the ISS Technical Webinar Series. I request Dr. Raghuvaran to felicitate her.
Dr. Manisha Bora, I am really very happy. Just keep the flag always flying high. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Inspector sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Can I have the next one? Yeah, thank you. Our next achiever is Dr. Suresh Bhai N. Patel. He is a professor of organic chemistry at the Department of Chemistry of Kavayatri Bahinabai Chaudhary, North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. He received an Academic Excellence Award for Lifetime Achievement by Association of Chemistry Teachers in April 2022. I request Dr. Nilima Rajurkar to felicitate him.
It is my pleasure to hand over this certificate to Dr. S.N. Patel, who retired as a principal at Shirpur College. Wish you all the best. Dr. Patel?
Thank you, madam.
Okay.
Can I have the next slide, please?
Yes.
Our next achiever is Dr. D.D. Patil. He is currently the principal of SBVP Samaj Sahakar Maharshi Bhausaheb Santuji Thorat Arts, Science and Commerce College, Sangamner, Ahmednagar. He received Best Principal Award conferred by Ministry of Higher and Technical Education, Government of Maharashtra, in association with Maharashtra Center for Informative Technology. I request Dr. Nilima Rajurkar to felicitate him.
Patil is there? I think he's not in the audience. I congratulate him. Best wishes. Go next. Proceed.
Yes. Our next achiever is Dr. Milind Kulkarni. He is a scientist D at Center for Materials for Electronics Technology, Pune. He has received Researchers of the Award conferred by IESA Industry as an IESA Industry Excellence Award. I request Dr. Nilima Rajurkar to felicitate him.
It is my pleasure to hand over this certificate to Dr. Milind Kulkarni. Wish you all the best. Milind, are you there?
Yeah, madam. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Our next achiever is Dr. Suvarna Tikle. Dr. Suvarna Tikle is a former CIFA network manager, IIT Madras, Chennai. She is being felicitated for securing second runner-up place in the paper presented in International Symposium on Clean Environment and Planetary Health in Asia, held in Bangkok, Thailand, during 26 to 27 March 2020. I request Dr. Avinash Kumbhar to felicitate her.
I congratulate Dr. Suvarna Tikle and the ISAS confers a certificate of appreciation on you on this Foundation Day. Congratulations.
I think Dr. Suvarna is not there.
Not there, yeah.
She has joined Max Planck Institute, Germany as a postdoctoral fellow. Maybe due to the time difference, she may not be there. Proceed further.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. I joined actually.
Oh, you have joined.
Oh, madam is there.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir, and entire team of ISAS.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next achiever is Dr. Mukula Joshi. She is an assistant professor at Modern College, Ganeshkhind, and an EC member of ISAS Pune chapter. She received an invitation to STEM teacher training program at University of Melbourne, Australia, which is scheduled during November 19 to 27, 2022. I request Dr. Avinash Kumbhar to felicitate her.
Dr. Mukula Joshi, it's my pleasure to felicitate you on this occasion and confer a certificate of appreciation from the Indian Society of Analytical Scientists Pune chapter. Congratulations and wish you good luck in your future endeavors.
Yeah, thank you
Mukula
very
is there?
much for your appreciation.
Thank you. Our next achiever is Dr. Aparna Gunjar. She is an assistant professor at the Department of Microbiology, Dr. D.Y. Patil Arts, Commerce and Science College, Pimpri, Pune. She is a winner of written book publication competition held by Microbiologist Society of India. I request Dr. Avinash Kumbhar to felicitate her.
Dr. Aparna Gunjan, it's my pleasure to felicitate you and confer a certificate of appreciation from the ISAS Pune chapter for your achievements in the last year, and we wish you good luck for your future endeavors and hope to have many more letters of appreciation, certificate of appreciation from ISAS in future.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Radhikar madam. Thank you so much, and thank you to the team of Indian Society of Analytical Scientists. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to all the achievers, and thank you all the dignitaries. Now I hand over the session to Dr. Mukula for further proceedings. Over to you, Mukula.
Yeah, thank you, Anupa ma'am. Now, may I request our today's chief guest, Dr. P.P. Chandrachudan, President of ISAS, to address the audience. Over to you, sir.
Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Today is a very special day for me because normally I used to be the chief host. Today I am treated as a chief guest for the function. So, dear Dr. Raghav Sharan, Vice President of ISAS, Dr. Nilima Rajurkar, Chairperson, ISAS Pune chapter, and all the esteemed EC members of the Pune chapter of ISAS, Dr. Sunil Hande, Dr. Avinash Kumbhar, eminent experts who are speaking about analytical techniques today, Prof. SF Patil, Dr. Dinesh Amalnerkar, and all other achievers who have been just facilitated, and special mention to the creators of excellent ISAS Geet, which we have missed hearing today, Dr. Aisha Khan, Dr. Anupa Kumbhar, Dr. Mukula Joshi, and all other enthusiastic participants of this Foundation Day celebration and one-day seminar on modern analytical techniques. At the outset, let me convey my best wishes on the occasion of Mahatma Gandhi's birthday, and also late PM Lal Bahadur Shastri ji's birthday too. Before I wish a happy birthday to the Pune chapter and many returns to the happy occasion for the Pune chapter, as the ISAS Pune chapter is celebrating its birthday today. Further, this event is happening during the International Year of Basic Sciences and Sustainable Development. I also convey my best wishes to all of you on this occasion too. Basic science and sustainable development gets effectively connected only when the basic science comes out of its shell and progresses into umpteen possibilities of applications. From that point of view, analytical science is one such immediate and direct application of basic science. Therefore, ISIS Pune chapter team led by Dr. Nilima Rajurkar deserves a special mention in choosing modern analytical techniques as the most apt subject for deliberation today. Because it is triggering some essential new lines of actions much needed for our nation to really accomplish our centenary targets in a sense fully Atmanirbhar way. As it is very well known that the analytical sciences are the most extensively and interwoven part of all the modern development activity. However, we can very easily see that most of the modern analytical instruments used for this purpose, analytical applications, are all imported, and there are rarely any major analytical instruments which are Indian made. This is a strategic area which is grossly neglected in the Atmanirbhar program of our country. And there is an emphatic necessity to press for indigenous development of analytical instruments. This particular issue might appear as an impossibility to the less enthusiastic people. But it is very clear to me, and I feel it is practically feasible, which can be attained by suitably creating a team out of the various scattered institutions like the CSIO, the Department of Atomic Energy, which consists of BARC, the Electronics Corporation of India, the Regional Center for Advanced Technology, RRCAT Indore, and the CGCRI, the CSIR Institute, and many other CSIR labs, etc., where there is a will, there is a way to do it. In this occasion, it is very useful to remember that the great national institutions like BARC, which started from the scratch, are living and functioning examples of Atmanirbharta in nuclear radiation detectors and a host of varieties of nuclear instrumentation necessary to run its various programs. So we have already a track record of Atmanirbharta in Indian instruments, effective Indian instrument, world quality instrumentation with respect to DAE, which I know firmly. And I also believe that it is the case with ISRO as well. Therefore, I am sure that based on a report on this seminar and taking advantage of the International Year of Basic Science and Sustainable Development, ISIS can focus on this essential requirement of our centenary development targets as an eye-opener to the Indian policymakers such as Niti Aayog, etc. That will be a high impact outcome of today's deliberations and involving an August gathering indeed. From this point of view, ISIS has already emphasized this theme in the Indian Analytical Science Congress, which is being planned to be held at Kochi during 23rd to 25th March 2023. In that seminar, we will discuss the further details about this. But before that, based on today's seminar, I suggest to Dr. Nilima Rajurkar that we make an approach paper on this matter and we will submit to the concerned government authority. With these remarks, I wish the ISIS Pune chapter a great success in the days to come. My best regards to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for your inspirational talk. And definitely the Indian analytical techniques will have the era as per your blessings. And as BARC is the pioneer in that, the non-destructive techniques of analysis. And as you said, sir, that when there is a will, there is a way. Definitely your talk is an inspiring and giving us the way for the young researchers. Thank you very much for your talk, sir. Okay, so now we will move towards the first lecture of our seminar. So our first speaker is Dr. D.G. Naik from Maharashtra Education Society. So may I now request Dr. Anupa to introduce the speaker. Over to you, ma'am.
Mukula, the introduction of our guest of honor is still remaining. I request Dr. Avinash Kumbhar to introduce the audience to our guest of today's guest of honor, Dr. Raghu sir. Over to you, sir.
Hello. Yes, it's again my pleasure to introduce our guest of honor today, Dr. Raghav Saran, the Vice President of ISAS and Adjunct Professor at RCOEM Nagpur. Dr. Raghav Saran held many prestigious positions in his career. He was Senior Scientist at Atomic Minerals Directorate for Exploration and Research, Department of Atomic Energy, OIC Chemical Laboratories based in Shillong, to provide on-site analytical data on ongoing program of 1-ton uranium extraction at Meghalaya. He was a former member of Coordination Committee of RSIC, which many students would know, the Regional Sophisticated Instrumentation Center, which was really catering to the needs of analytical techniques for several students in the past years. He was also a coordination committee member of NECC and served as expert of several appointment committees for recruitment of scientific officers and staff, and organized 13 national and international symposia, besides several workshops and training programs. He completed several projects under BRNS, Manipur government, ICAR, and collaborated with RSIC, NEHU Shillong, Guwahati University, etc. He was a recognized guide for PhD in Guwahati University and Indian Institute of Petroleum at Dehradun. He has more than 35 years expertise in analytical techniques, in geochemical exploration and related research and development, employing plasma-based DT and NDT techniques, XRF, flame and non-flame AAS, HRCS, AAS, including non-aqueous solvents, etc., including statistical evaluation and interpretation of the analytical data of several aspects such as uranium deposits, quality of coal, citrus fruits to assess the environmental pollution index, etc. He has 79 research publications in journals of international and national repute and has co-authored a book of atom. His research interests include development of new analytical techniques for the determination of metals at trace levels, sub-ppm to ppm levels, with high sensitivity, greater precision, better accuracy, higher rapidity, and greater ease in operation with time economy and high selectivity, and has delivered several talks at different symposia, conferences, and RSIC centers. We thank Dr. Raghav Saran for his constant support and encouragement for the activities of ISAS Pune chapter, and welcome him to this workshop today.
Thank you, sir, for your introduction. Now I hand it over to Dr. Mukula for further questions. Mukula, over to you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So now we are going to begin with the online and first lecture will be from Dr. D.G. Naik to introduce the speaker. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mukula. It is a pleasure to introduce Dr. D.G. Naik, sir. Dr. D.G. Naik, sir, obtained his PhD in organic chemistry from National Chemical Laboratory, Pune in 1982. He worked at Union Carbide India Limited R&D Center, Bhopal as a research officer from 1982 to 1986. For a year during this period, he was deputed as visiting scientist at Union Carbide Agricultural Products Division, Research Triangle Park, USA. After the Bhopal gas tragedy, he joined Agarkar Research Institute in 1986 and worked till 2016. Presently, he is the project coordinator, Maharashtra Education Society, Pune. His research is in the area of semiochemicals, natural product chemistry, and synthetic organic chemistry. He is the pioneer in the field of chemistry of Indian honeybees. He has successfully carried out isolation, identification, synthesis, and bioassay of important honeybee pheromones. Certain plant-based attractant and repellent formulations for honeybees were also developed by him. Lures and repellent formulations for Indian honeybees, thus developed, are patented. Development of quality standards of Indian medicinal plants, followed by isolation and complete characterization of phytochemical reference standards of these medicinal plants, are the important achievements of his group. Monographs based on this work are published by ICMR from time to time. His research projects were financially supported by Ministry of Agriculture, Indian Council of Medical Research, Department of Science and Technology, and Department of Biotechnology, as well as many industrial houses. Under the ICMR projects, he has prepared quality standards of Indian medicinal plants. These 110 monographs have been published by ICMR over last 10 years. Besides these, he has also published 60 research papers and is holding 5 Indian patents. He has many honors and awards to his credit. To name a few, he has an elected fellow of the Maharashtra Academy of Sciences, elected as the life member of All India Beekeepers Association. He is an invited editor-in-chief of an international journal, Journal of Essential Oil-Bearing Plants, brought out by Taylor and Francis. He is an invited member of Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission IPC as an advisor to US Pharmacopoeia for the period 2005 to 2020. He was invited by London Metropolitan University, London as a visiting professor. Also, he has been a contributory teacher to various universities and colleges, wrote more than 200 popular articles in newspapers and magazines, and more than 100 radio talks were also broadcast by All India Radio Board. With this introduction, I request Dr. D.G. Naik to start his lecture on HPLC, theory and applications. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rajurkar. Thank you, Dr. Anupa, for the very kind introduction. And at the outset, I congratulate Professor Nilima Rajurkar for initiating the activity of Pune chapter of ISAS. And I once again thank her for giving me this opportunity to speak in this one-day seminar. I will be speaking on HPLC theory and applications. Maitri? So before I slide for that. So let us try to understand what the tasks before the practicing organic chemists. Whenever somebody works in the lab, there are several questions he has to address. I listed some of the questions. Is the reaction complete? How to follow the course of reaction? Is the desired product formed, or is any other product formed during the reaction? If you get a mixture in the reaction as a reaction product, how to separate the constituents of the reaction, these mixtures? And once you separate this, how to characterize these compounds obtained? Finally, if somebody is working in the area of natural product chemistry, he has to address this particular question: how to study the chemicals which are available in very small quantities. And to address these questions, that all of you know that the techniques of chromatography are available. Chromatography is a method to analyze and or separate the mixtures. In any chromatographic method, there is usually a stationary phase and a mobile phase. Commonly practiced chromatographic techniques are thin layer chromatography, prepared with TLC, HPTLC, column chromatography, gas chromatography, high performance liquid chromatography, and of course there are hyphenated techniques like GCMS, LCMS, and so on. If the mobile phase is liquid and stationary phase is solid, then we have high performance liquid chromatography. In the chromatographic system, what are the factors affecting the efficiency of separation in chromatography? Particle size of the stationary phase is one of the important factors. Packing of the column is another factor. Separation between two spots of the compounds to be separated is yet another factor. Polarity gradient of the solvent is another factor. Elution rate and fraction size. Now, if you optimize these factors in a proper way, then it is easy to separate the given mixture properly and to isolate the pure compounds. Now, let us discuss these factors one by one. Particle size of the stationary phase. If you have larger particle size, then there are less theoretical plates. And if you have smaller particle size, then there are more theoretical plates. Therefore, smallest particle size is the best for separation. Smaller the particle size, of course, this reduction in the particle size of the stationary phase does not come without a problem. If you reduce the particle size, then the elution rate is lower, and control over the elution rate is not easy. To address this, using vacuum is one of the methods, or mechanism to increase the elution rate is needed. Ways to increase the elution rate: if you apply the vacuum at the lower end of the column by using a pump, then while changing the flask, vacuum needs to be disconnected, and because of that, the system becomes unstable. If you apply the pressure at the top of the column, then elution rate definitely increases, but the pressure needs to be disconnected while refilling the solvents. Therefore, the system again becomes unstable. So you have to keep on changing the system now and then. To address this, to have the solution for this particular issues, MPLC and HPLC are evolved. MPLC is medium pressure liquid chromatography. The solvent carrier is put under pressure and may increase the pressure of the column. So ordinary column may not withstand. Therefore, special types of columns, MPLC columns, are invented, and such machines are sold in the market. We have been using such MPLC machine for the last more than 25 years. Here, pump plus reinforced column plus fraction collector is the combination of MPLC. This is the MPLC schematic: solvent reservoir, pump, column, and collection vessel. This is the equipment which we had using for more than 30 years. Next step for this is high performance liquid chromatography. This is what is our discussion topic of discussions today. So we'll be dealing with details of this high performance liquid chromatography. I have deliberately given you the background of how the pressure differences at the column is responsible for developing MPLC and HPLC. In HPLC, the instrumentation goes like this. There is a solvent reservoir, and then there is a pump. Using the pump, the solvent is put under pressure on the HPLC column. In between the pump and the column, there is an injector where the sample can be injected. The other end of the column is sent to the detector, and then it is sent to the waste. This is the equipment. This is the quaternary HPLC system. Now, if you look at the HPLC instrument, what are the essential parts? The heart of the HPLC system is the pump. The column contains the particles that contain stationary phase. The mobile phase is pumped through the column by a pump. Solvent must be degassed to eliminate the formation of bubbles because the tubes are very of small diameters, and many times formation of bubble can lead to the stopping the system and the suitable detector. These are the essential parts of the HPLC system. Injector is a rheodine injector, and it is used for introduction of the sample into the mobile phase. This is injected through the loop. Usually the rheodine injector is used as a loop. There are auto sampler or manual sampler also possible. And advantage of this loop is you can exactly introduce the quantity which you desire. Error is minimized. The role of pump is to force the liquid mobile phase through the liquid chromatograph at a specific flow rate. This can be programmed, and you can program the specific amount of solvent going over to the column in a desired time. The pump can deliver constant mobile phase composition. You can use only one solvent, which is isocratic system. You can also have a gradient of 2, 3, or 4 solvents going through the column. So accordingly, there are isocratic, binary, ternary, or quaternary HPLC system. Now there are certain chiral compounds, and they are having different biological properties. And this is what is important. If you look at a compound aspargine, its R isomer is bitter, whereas the S isomer is bitter and R isomer is sweet. If you look at the limonene, S isomer is having lemon odor and R isomer is having orange odor. If you look at the aspartame, its SS diastereomer is sweet in taste, whereas its mirror image RR is bitter in taste. Carvone, if you take S isomer, it is having caraway odor, and if you look at the R isomer, it's having the spearmint odor. And if you have synthetic mixture, it is always mixture of both the isomers. It is racemic mixture. In this situation, if you are interested in having only one of the isomers in optically pure form, then the method of choice again goes to the HPLC, where you can separate isomers of racemic mixture or diastereomic mixtures. There are chiral HPLC column. Chiral chromatography refers to separation of chiral stationary phase. Enantiomers are separated based on the number and types of each interaction that occurs during the exposure to chiral stationary phase. These are the principles governing chiral separation. The diastereomeric complex in chromatographic equilibrium such that the non-chiral interactions are minimum strength and the differential chiral interactions is at a mixture of strength. Identifying those points of interaction between the stationary phase and the racemate guides you to the choice of stationary phase and the best conditions where to operate. This is against the non-chiral stationary phases. What are the types of interaction in the chiral? There are hydrogen donor sites, hydrogen acceptor sites, inclusion complexation, steric hindrance, dipole-dipole interactions, and ionic interactions. The result of all these interactions together leads to the separation of chiral molecules on the HPLC column. Then stationary phase, there are, this is the chiral column was a special case. Now, as far as the usual separations are concerned, there are normal phase and reverse phase columns. In the normal phase column, the separation is just like a column of the silica gel. Non-polar compound elute first, followed by medium polar, and finally the polar compounds will come out in the last. Against that, there is a reverse phase column also available, where the non-polar stationary phase and polar solvent is used. Example of this very widely used columns are C18 and C8. Using these columns, the polar compounds will be eluted first, followed by the non-polar compound. And the most non-polar compound will be eluted in the end. There are other columns, ion exchange column, size exclusion column. So in the ion exchange column, stationary phase contains ionic groups and the mobile phase is an aqueous buffer. In the size exclusion columns, there are no interaction between the sample compounds and the column. Larger molecules elute first and smaller molecules elute at last. Only this elution depends upon the atomic molecular size of the compounds. Therefore, choice of the column is very critical, and it depends upon the sample type, and it depends also upon what type of method you are planning to achieve the separation. Then comes the detector. There is a variable wavelength UV visible detector. This is the very popular detector and mostly used. Almost 90% of the systems, they use UV variable wavelength UV detector. In addition to that, there is a refractive index RI detector. There's evaporative light scattering detector. There's a multi-angle light scattering detector, photodiode array detector, conductivity detector, and fluorescence detector. Of course, the choice of the detector also depends upon the requirement of analysis. I can illustrate this with one example. If you want to use variable wavelength UV visible detector, the compounds must contain at least one double bond. So alkanes and saturated compounds cannot be detected by UV visible detector. In that case, you have to go for refractive index detector. Like that, you can make the choices of the other detector also. Of course, this doesn't come free. If you want to add a detector, you have to pay its price, which is reasonably good. Then the separation in the HPLC system takes place in a specific way. This video will illustrate how the separation takes place. The mixture is introduced by the injection port, which is in the middle. The solvents are sucked using the pump, and as the mixture passes across the column, the constituents get separated and come out of the elution port. And while this process is being done, you also get the chromatogram in the detector. This is how it takes place. Sample is entering into the column. Constituents are getting separated. It goes further. And as it leaves the detector, the chromatogram the unretained peak, and TR is the retention time of the sample identity. Area of the height is proportional to the quantity of analyte. However, it cannot be used to determine relative or absolute concentration. So the larger the peak, more the compound is not always true. This is the chromatogram, compound A, B, and C. And resolution is an important HPLC performance indicator, which is usually assessed by how quickly or how completely the target components in a sample separate as they pass through the column. Resolution is measured by the dividing difference in the peak retention indices by the average peak width. This is the formula. What is a good resolution value? You should get either 1 or higher value of resolution, then only we can say the resolution is good. And while optimizing the conditions of HPLC analysis, one has to choose the solvent, flow rate, and column in such a way that the resolution is always 1 or more than 1. If you want to improve the resolution, then you have to reduce the sample size, increase the column length, decrease the particle size, reduce peak tailing, and increase the temperature. Yes, I can mention that also. There is an oven available which can be kept around the column, and you can heat the column if required. This facility will help in improving the resolution. Then reduction of the flow rate can also lead to the improvement in the resolution. Then comes the question of quantification. I have already given a mention that larger the peak area does not mean that that compound is major in the reaction mixture being analyzed. The peak heights do not really represent the concentration. Why? Because what you actually see is the response of the detector. So the response factor has to be considered if you are interested in determining the absolute concentrations of the constituents in the mixture. The peak height is a function of response factor. To take care of it, the calibration curve is used, and to generate the calibration curve, different concentrations of the authentic samples are injected and the area is measured. Then the calibration curve is plotted, and from the calibration curve, you can get the absolute concentration of any given constituent in a mixture. Then there is something called as height equivalent of the theoretical plate, which helps you to choose the column required for the correct separation. What is a theoretical plate? It is hypothetical unit of column where the distribution of solute between stationary phase and the mobile phase has attained the equilibrium, also called a functional unit of the column. The height of one theoretical plate is referred to as height equivalent of a theoretical plate. So HKTP describes the efficiency of the column. If the HKTP is less, column is more efficient. If HKTP is more, the column is less efficient. This can also be calculated by Van Demeter equation. Now, what are the types of HPLC equipments available to us? If you use only one solvent for the separation, it is an isocratic system. If you use two solvents and the programmable of the two solvents, for example, 100% of the A, 0% of B, 90% of the A, 10% of the B, and so on, then it is a binary system. If you use three solvents, it is ternary system. And finally, there is a quaternary system also available. Then there are hyphenated system like HPLC MS, where you can attach mass spectrometer to the HPLC instrument. And use of varying quantities of different solvents help in improving the resolution. So using these equipments, use of varying proportion to the solvent, you can improve this resolution, and you get the proper separation using the most appropriate HPLC equipment. Then there is an extension of HPLC equipment, and that is preparative HPLC, because in the normal analytical HPLC instrument, you are not able to load more sample in the injection port, because of which the output coming out of the detector also contains very small quantity of the purified compound. But if you want to use it for preparative purposes, the equipment preparative HPLC is also available. And this is equipment adopted for higher injection volumes. Here, about 500 micrograms of the solution, the compound in a solution can be injected. The components get separated, and you can collect the components while they are getting eluted. Optical isomers also can be separated. Geometrical isomers also can be separated. Only the other part of the coin is this equipment is expensive. So if you plan to differentiate analytical and preparative HPLC system, in the analytical HPLC, sample goes from detector into the wastewater, whereas in preparative HPLC, sample goes from detector into the fraction collector. The size of the analytical column is 4.6 by 100 millimeters, whereas in preparative it is 19 millimeters by 100 millimeters. Sample injection volume is about 5 microliters in the analytical HPLC. Sample injection volume in the preparative HPLC is about 5,000 microliters. In analytical HPLC, you get only qualitative analysis, whereas in the preparative HPLC, you get actual separation of the components in the reaction mixture. Now, if you look at the compounds in the working areas, if you isolate the compound in microgram quantities, there are isolation of enzymes. If you isolate the compound in milligrams, then there are biological and biochemical testing. Such compounds are structure elucidation, characterization of reaction products, metabolites and from biological matrix, and natural products to be characterized. So you have to design the HPLC system in such a way that you get milligram quantities. If you are able to isolate in gram quantities, then reference compounds analytical standards are prepared, and you can have the preparative HPLC instrument for getting these types of separation, this scale of separation. And of course, if you are able to isolate in kilograms, then the industrial scales, active compounds and drugs, these are available for the use by during the manufacture of drug molecules. If you look at the HPLC system and the separations offered by it, there are certain advantages and there are certain disadvantages. In the advantages, the less analysis time, it can be even few minutes, provided you have optimized the conditions properly. You get very high resolution, you get very good sensitivity, you get very good accuracy in separation as well as in quantification, and automation is also possible. In automated machines, you can load 100 samples in the evening while closing of the lab, start the machine, and when you come in the morning, you get those HPLC chromatograms of all the samples loaded by you in the automatic HPLC machine. These are advantages, and the disadvantages is their cost of the machine is very high, and second one is a little complex arrangement, and you have to be very particular. You have to avoid dust, you have to avoid air bubble. So cleanliness and working discipline is important. In that case, you can get maximum advantages of HPLC in the machine. TLC also can be compared with HPLC. TLC is a very different technique, and you can compare that with HPLC so that you can correlate what is HPLC. Stationary phase is 2-dimensional TLC. It is a 3-dimensional column in the stationary phase. Instrumentation is minimal in TLC, whereas it is elaborate in HPLC. Sample application is done by spotting with capillary in TLC, whereas it is injection by injection in Riordan injection in HPLC system. Mobile phase movement is by capillary action, and mobile phase movement is because of high pressure solvent in the delivery system in HPLC system. Visualization of the spots is by either UV or by using TLC developing reagents, whereas in the HPLC system, there is an online detector available so that you can detect the compound getting eluted of the column. Then output of the analysis in the form of result on the spots or bands in TLC, whereas it is in the form of peaks, and retention time is utilized to understand the separation of the mixture by HPLC system. Then we'll come to the applications of HPLC. Applications are there in advanced research laboratories. Wherever the separation of organic compounds is there, HPLC is inevitable these days. There are sugar analysis, pesticide analysis, chiral analysis, honey analysis, drug standardization, phytochemical analysis, and many more applications of HPLC. They are available today. We can discuss some of them. In the environmental analysis, the phenols in drinking water can be easily analyzed and quantified by using the HPLC system. Detection of halogenated compounds in water, which is very risky to the human being, can be done using HPLC analysis. Identification of diphenylamine in sediments is possible by using HPLC system. The biomonitoring of aromatic hydrocarbons is possible using HPLC system. Steroid detection in sewage water is possible using HPLC system. Assessment of trinitrotoluene in sediments is possible using HPLC system. Then there are some application in forensic science also. Identification of drug ecstasy in parties can be done using HPLC system. Determination of narcotic drugs is possible using HPLC system. Detection of steroids in sweat, hair, and urine. Detection of psychotherapeutic drugs in the plasma. Analysis of adulteration in food colors is possible using HPLC system. And the adulterant can also be isolated if you use preparative HPLC. Detection of adulteration in drugs or herbal drugs is possible by HPLC system. Then there are certain application in clinical applications also. Analysis of DEET in urine. So if the person has consumed DEET, it can be analyzed in urine. Detection of endogenous neuropeptides is possible using HPLC system. Analysis of antibiotics and even their degradation products is possible using HPLC. Analysis of secretion to diagnose liver disorders is possible by using HPLC of the appropriate solvents recovered from the body. Determination of stability of aspartame is possible by using HPLC system. Analysis of food and flavor is possible by using HPLC system. So ensuring the soft drink quality and consistency is possible by this analysis. Analysis of bisphenol diketones in the beverages, which are responsible to ensure that the beverages being delivered are safe, is possible by HPLC system. Sugar analysis in fruit juice, what sugars it contains, what isomers are there in the fruit juices is possible by HPLC system. Detection of aromatic hydrocarbons in fruit and to make sure that they are kept within the range is also possible by HPLC system. Isolation of natural colors. If you want to actually isolate the natural colors from the extract of the plants, it is possible using HPLC system. Then comparison of two shades of natural dyes is possible by HPLC system. I can show you some examples. This is the sugar analysis. Glucose, fructose, sucrose, maltose, and lactose can be separated by HPLC system, and you get these signals like this, and this is the most optimum resolved system of sugar analysis. Similarly, we can see pesticide analysis. You can see so many pesticides separated just in one injection. Then these are some examples where malathion, sumithion, diazione are separated using HPLC, and on the right hand side you see the calibration curve. These are the results: diazione, malathion, sumithion, milligrams per kilogram. You get observed and permitted more quantity of the pesticides are shown to be present by HPLC analysis. The structural isomers can also be separated using the HPLC system. Corticosterone, cortisone, and hydrocortisone are easily separated and quantified using the HPLC system. Separation of chiral compounds, there are cis and trans stilbene can be separated on cyclobond column. You can see the cis and trans stilbene. You can see racemide, two isomers separated S and R. You can see 2,2,3 alpha 4,9A hexahydropyrrole quinoline carboxylic amide. These compounds are separated by using a cyclobond column in a drug analysis. So we can have some examples of analysis of chiral drugs. Omeprazole isomers can be separated and you can get a very good chromatogram. Cetirizine can be separated, isomers can be separated using HPLC and you get a very good chromatogram. Ibuprofen, yet another drug, very popular drug. Isomers can be separated using HPLC equipment. Propranolol, you can separate the compounds using HPLC and even quantify them. Ofloxacin, isomers can be separated using HPLC system and quantify them. Chloroquine can be separated. It shows, the chromatogram shows that very good resolution. Then there are clinical diagnosis. Catecholamines such as epinephrine and dopamine are highly important for many biological functions. Analyzing their precursors and metabolites can provide diagnosis of diseases such as Parkinson's disease, heart disease, and muscular dystrophy. Dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter. Your body makes it and the nervous system uses it to send messages between nerve cells. That is why it's sometimes called as a chemical messenger. Dopamine plays a role in how we feel pleasure. It's a big part of our unique human ability to think and plan. It helps us to strive, focus, and think interesting. Epinephrine is also known as adrenaline, is a medication and hormone. As a medication, it is used to treat a number of conditions, including anaphylaxis, cardiac arrest, asthma, and superficial bone bleeding. Epinephrine and dopamine. This is the solution of epinephrine and dopamine, and they can be easily analyzed by HPLC. Identification of molecule in HPLC is done by measuring retention time. HPLC then can be used to detect the diseases as mentioned, but not monitor the progression of disease. HPLC has the ability to separate and compare the molecules to a higher magnitude than other techniques. Then I'll come to some of the applications in drug standardization carried by us. HPLC was used in the fingerprinting of herbal drug. This is Aphanomyxis polystachya. This is a compound, this is a plant drug which is having many marker compounds. These are the structures of these compounds, amuranine, and its TLC is shown, TLC of 3 different samples collected from different parts of India. And you can see that the TLC pattern is very similar to each other. The marker compound was isolated and presence of the marker compound was shown in these 3 samples. Then its fingerprint by HPLC was also recorded and quantity of marker compound present in the crude extract was also estimated using the calibration curve. Second one was Ailanthus triphysia. Here, these are the different structures of the marker compounds present. They were isolated in the extract and shown the fingerprinting by the TLC. The active compound was also isolated and its presence was shown by TLC as well as HPLC, and using calibration curve, the quantification was also done. Anisomelis malabarica was another plant which was used for analysis, and anisomelin and malabaric acid were the marker compounds, and again they were the other compounds present. TLC shows good separation of the compounds. Then the marker compound ovatodiolide was isolated, characterized, and used for marking the TLC. It was same thing was used for HPLC analysis, and using HPLC analysis, the fingerprint HPLC was prepared and the quantity of ovatodiolide was calculated using the calibration curve where the response factor was considered. Then Cardiospermum helicacabum, the major compound was arachidic acid and quebrachitol was the compounds, and using arachidic acid, the TLC and HPLC analysis was done and the quantity of the marker compound in the total crude extract was estimated. Jasminium auriculatum, its leaves and flowers are used as a drug in herbal medical system. The compounds in the leaves and flowers were malvallic acid and benzyl acetate. These are the structures of these compounds present, and TLC shows a very good separation of the total crude extract, and it also shows the presence of benzyl acetate in the crude extract. HPLC fingerprinting of the crude extract was done, and presence of benzyl acetate was shown by HPLC also, and quantification was done using the calibration curve, which is also shown here. This is from the leaves. Malvallic acid was used to quantify the crude extract of herbal drug leaf. Melotus philippinensis, these are the list of the compounds. These are again structures of the compounds are shown here, rotlerine, hydroxyrotlerine, and only this to show that handling these compounds is not very easy, because these compounds are likely to undergo changes during the analysis. They can either rearrange, or they can get cyclized, or they can get air oxidized. So proper conditions need to be maintained during TLC and HPLC analysis. But by using the proper precautions, you can get very good TLC chromatogram and HPLC chromatogram also, and you can quantify using the calibration curve. Crinium asiaticum, here also compounds are present. The compounds are identified. These are the structures of the compounds which show that there are very large number of sensitive places in the molecule, so that proper precaution is needed. But if it is taken, you can get very good separation on TLC and perfect analysis by HPLC analysis. You can get the calibration curve, and here the lycorine was used as the marker compound, and using lycorine you can get a fingerprint chromatogram, TLC as well as HPLC. Barringtonia, here also barygenic acid and baringotegenol is compound. These are the structures of these compounds. There are steroidal and triterpenoidal compounds. You get a very good TLC pattern of the crude extract, and you also get a very good HPLC chromatogram where you can quantify the barygenic acid in the total crude extract. These were accepted by Indian Council of Medical Research for publication as monograph, and they were included in these volumes. So this is 2006 quality standards for Indian medicinal plants, then 2007, then 2008, 2009, then volume 9 we were not there, volume 10 again we were there, volume 11, volume 12, volume 13. Then there was a need to have phytochemical reference standards for selected Indian medicinal plants. We were able to demonstrate that it is possible to isolate any compound using preparative HPLC, and more than 100 phytochemical reference standards were isolated, and they were completely characterized by recording their spectral data. And the collection of our information was published by this ICMR in a book, Phytochemical Reference Standards for Selected Indian Medicinal Plants. All the monographs in this particular volume are written by us. Then there was a second volume, third volume. Here, in addition to our group, there was a group from Bangalore who also contributed in creation of this information. Then finally, with all this, I can say HPLC is an effective analytical technique. Honey can be analyzed, pesticide residue can be analyzed, optical isomers can also be analyzed, geometrical isomers can be analyzed, sugar isomers can be analyzed. It is a very good tool for standardization of herbal drugs, and there are large number of applications. So with this note, I thank all of you for listening to me patiently. And I once again thank Dr. Professor Razurkar for giving me this opportunity to speak up some of our results in this auditorium, no, in this audience. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a very nice talk for the introduction of HPLC, its coordination with TLC and MPLC, sir, and also its wide applications. I think it was a very nice experience for all of us to have your speech. So now I'm we will start with the question answer sessions. So for that, I'm handing it over to Dr. Ayesha Khan. Over to you, Dr. Ayesha.
Thank you, Dr. Garg wants to ask some question. Garg, sir, please.
Yes, sir.
He's raised his hand.
Ma'am, he has put it in the chat box.
Yeah.
Sir, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, or I can read it out. His question is, can you please elaborate standardization of herbal drugs? Naik,
Yes.
sir, please.
Yes. So whenever you want to standardize a herbal drug, you take that plant material and get it authenticated by a botanist so that there is no doubt about what plant is being used. Then you optimize the extract. You can use different solvents and see in which particular solvent you get the maximum extract. Number 3, use either preparative HPLC or preparative TLC and isolate the marker compound, using which you can have a TLC pattern with all the spots being resolved and its comparison with the marker compound isolated. Then you run a HPLC program and run it in such a way that all the spots are resolved to the best possible extent, and then run the marker compound HPLC as well, run the marker compound calibration curve, and then get quantity of herbal marker compound present in the herbal drug. This completes the standardization. So you have a resolved TLC with reference to marker compound. You have well-resolved HPLC with reference to marker compound. You have the calibration curve and you can quantify. If you are able to complete this, then the drug is standardized and this is accepted all over the world. If you are able to supply this data, then it is accepted. This is how the standardization of herbal drug is carried out. And ICMR also has accepted this. Not only that, US Pharmacopoeia has also accepted this type of standardization of the herbal drugs.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to the next question by Sagar. His question is, can you please explain how to select HPLC columns?
Yes. Number 1 is some catalogs are already supplied by the suppliers. So you can have the information readily available in the literature. But if you don't want to rely on that, you can go by trial and error method. You can have a mixture of 2 closely related compounds and try column one by one. Go for that column which gives the maximum resolution. That is the simplest way of doing the things.
Thank you, sir. Another question by Suprita is, how would you calculate the limit of detection?
Yes, you can. What you can do is, there are certain figures available in the literature, but let us not rely on that. You take, let us say, 1 milligram in 2 ml of the solvent and record its HPLC chromatogram. Dilute it to half, record its HPLC chromatogram. Go on doing that till you get just a small bump on the HPLC chromatogram. And that is the limit of quantification. That's how you can experimentally determine the lowest limit which can be detected by your HPLC system.
Thank you, sir. I would take another one question. That is, what would you recommend for a teaching lab exercise when you're explaining the HPLC?
Yes. Number 1 is you can take a sample, which is a mixture of little well-resolved compounds for teaching purposes. Then you can record its TLC and record HPLC. Try to correlate the location of the spots with reference to the polarity of the system and try to find out the relation between HPLC and TLC outputs. Then you can have quantification during the using the calibration curve, using the response factor, and really show that whatever quantity you mixed in preparation of the mixture can be detected by HPLC system. This can be a very good exercise for teaching HPLC in the lab.
Thank you, sir. Aparna Gunjal, ma'am, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one or two questions. First of all, your lecture was really very nice and very simple to understand because that is very important. I want to know the compound that we achieve after, which is eluted after doing the HPLC. Will it be completely purified one, or will it require further purification?
It's a very good question. See, we take maximum precaution to make sure that you get the pure compound. What is necessary is after you get the compound out of the, let us say, preparative HPLC column, you take that sample and analyze it by analytical HPLC. If you get only one signal, that means the compound is pure. Unfortunately, if it is not pure, you can have one more run of preparative HPLC and go on repeating that till you get a correct single peak compound in the analytical HPLC. But mostly just within one or at the most two runs of HPLC analysis, preparative HPLC analysis, you get a pure compound. And its purity can be definitely done by its HPLC analysis, but you can also check its physical constant like melting point, specific rotation if the compound is active, optically active, and also check its comparison with the literature. Like that, you can estimate the purity of the compound.
Okay, thank you, sir. And the markers, no? You talked about the marker. So is it the standard that we need to use it as we do for the TLC also? So we give the spot of the standard also along with the sample.
Correct. Basically, the marker compounds, there are some things available in the literature, but that's not the correct way. You don't rely on literature. What you do is, if you want to have a marker compound for a specific plant, you make a list of all the compounds available, isolable and isolated from that plant, and find out which are the compounds which are specific to that particular plant. You can, literature can help you to do that. And presence of those compounds indicate the use of that particular plant. So the compounds which are only present or present only in that plant can be taken as marker compound. You can decide yourself about the marker compounds. If one compound is not available, you can go for a group of 2 or 3 compounds which are present in a specific percentage, and that group of compounds can be used as marker compound of that particular plant. That's how you decide, make a decision about marker compound in the plant extract or herbal drug.
Okay, thank you, sir. And the area, no? The area that we get, the peaks. So we need to calculate that area, no? And
Yes,
so will it give you how much quantity is present?
Correct. The area, as I said already, area does not truly give you the concentration of the compound present in the mixture, because area is obtained by the response of the detector. Therefore, you need to know the response factor. And to do that, you have to take the pure compound, draw a calibration curve. And from that calibration curve, you have to go back to what is the compound present. So unless you draw the calibration curve, you cannot really judge. So if you have 5 compounds to be detected, you have to have 5 marker, 5 calibration curves.
Yes, Anupa.
Thank you,
Please unmute yourself. I request you to unmute yourself. Anupa Kumbhar, you can please ask your question.
Thank you, Aisha ma'am. Sir, if we have a compound like oxime, and we know that isomers of oximes are possible. So when we elute, we get a single band, and when we again put it on TLC, it separates into 2 isomers.
Correct.
So what is the solution for this?
Yes, I know. Because the isomers are in equilibrium with one another. That is the reason. Even that can be for nitrosamines, even oximes, hydrazines, like that. So in such cases, the isolate of the HPLC has to be chilled in dry ice. So at minus 78, the conversion of the individual components is less. That is how you can isolate the pure form of compounds. But once you allow it to attain the room temperature, again, the equilibration takes place and you keep on getting both the isomers. So lowering the temperature is one of the good ideas to get any specific isomer in the pure form, which are interconvertible by heat.
Yes, thank you, sir. But that means both, as soon as we put them in solution, they are coexisting.
Yes, exactly. So you have to check.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. One last.
I'm Chandrajudan here.
Yes, sir,
thank you for a very informative talk. Actually, I was thinking about the fingerprint chromatograph being used for labeling Ayurvedic preparations.
Yes.
Mainly because most of the preparations have a different type of herbs, and because of the lack of availability, many drugs, though they claim, it doesn't really carry the particular herb.
Yes.
By the fingerprinting process, we can definitely define the particular formulation according to the.
Correct.
Am I clear? In my question clear?
Yes.
Because they say Charagascular medicine, but due to non-availability, many ingredients are not actually used, and we find from manufacturer to manufacturer different quality for the same medicine. So by this fingerprinting process, will it not be possible to label?
Correct.
Label, yeah.
You are right, sir. In fact, we have recommended to the government through ICMR that whatever herbal drugs are being sold, they should be made to print TLC and HPLC profiles on their labels.
Yeah.
We recommend that. That will ensure that the drugs which are provided, they have some minimum uniformity.
Yeah, yes.
We have already recommended that in 2012 or so to the government.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that will be a great contribution
to
the scientific standing of our traditional medicine system.
Correct. Information is generated, it is submitted to the government. Only it is the government who has to
approve. It was a very
important
talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for the great initiative.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Naik, sir. Your talk was very voluminous and it explained HPLC. We have several other questions. Since we are lacking time, what I would do is I would just get back to you, and I'm sure all the people who have put in the questions will get back to you. Thank you for the question answer session. Thank you, sir, for your talk. I now request Mukula to proceed further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Aisha. Thank you, Dr. Nilima, ma'am. So we will move to the next speaker, Dr. Ajit Datar. So may I now request Dr. Dhananjay Borkar to introduce him. Over to you, sir.
It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Ajit Datar. Dr. Datar was the recipient of the Department of Atomic Energy Fellowship in 1971 and carried out his PhD research from Analytical Chemistry Division of BARC. Ajit Ganesh Datar was working as an advisor to Shimadzu Analytical India Private Limited, Mumbai, in the Customer Support Center from 2007 to 2020. His main job profile was to provide instrumental analysis support to the customers and provide training. Prior to Shimadzu, he was with the Thermoelectron and served this organization as a general manager, advanced mass spectroscopy. He was responsible for promoting advanced mass spectroscopy product of thermophening in India. He retired in 2007 and after completing 58 years. He served for Chromaline Instrument Company and IR Technology as a technical director and senior manager, respectively, for the period of 15 years. His first assignment was with the Central Research Station of Associated Cement Company Limited as a research officer. He served in this company for 12 years. He has developed method for characterization of catalyst and process product using catalyst. He indigenously developed BT surface area analyzer and particle size analyzer. Dr. Datta received his MSc in 1971 and PhD in 1976 from Mumbai University. He is associated with the MSc course in Bioanalytical Science since 2004 for development of syllabus and teaching since it was introduced in the Mumbai University. He covers the topic of analytical instruments for bioanalysis by having about 100 lectures per year. He was a visiting faculty for the diploma course on industrial analytical chemistry at RIA College from 1994 to 2007. He is the visiting faculty at several colleges in Mumbai. He has several publications in his name and was guide for the PhD in Mumbai University, and he guided 8 students in the period between 2009 to 2017. He's working as an advisor to Borosil Limited since January 2021. He loves sports and received the trophy for all-round performance in the sports in ACC Limited for 2 years during his tenure in ACC. With this introduction, I request Dr. Ajit Datta to deliver a talk on basics of hyphenation of gas chromatography with mass spectroscopy and its application. Thank you, and please hand over to Dr. Ajit Datta, sir. Thank you.
Yes, hope I'm audible. Thank you, madam, for your kind words, and thanks for inviting me for this ISA's Pune chapter Foundation Day celebration. I'm very glad to I would be able to deliver my talk on the subject which is given to me within the time frame. Okay, so let me begin with my subject on GC with of GC with MS. I'm audible, because I'm.
Sir, I'm sorry to disturb. You are audible, but your screen is not shared.
Not shared.
Your presentation is not seen.
Not shared. Okay, let me try again. Yeah, now?
No, sir, yeah, it is there now.
Now it is shared. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Make it a slide.
Yeah, so let me begin.
Slide show.
Slide show.
Yeah. It's visible.
Where I have to go.
No, it's okay, sir, now.
This way?
Yes, it is visible,
Or
but
this is better.
Full screen. Yeah.
Full screen. Yeah, I'm making full
Yeah.
screen. I think that is better. Yeah.
This is visible, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is visible. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Okay, so let me begin. As we are all analytical chemists, this is the Society for Analytical Scientists. So let me begin my talk with showing you the analytical chemist, or myself, because I'm also analytical chemist. Okay, so let me start with this. Okay, so as I say, analytical chemist is a juggler. He is playing with some objects, standing on a platform with a gyratory motion. Okay, so let us see what he is playing with. I'm putting everything together, and he's playing with some important terminologies in analytical chemistry: sensitivity, selectivity, separation, structure, and speed. Okay, all these are important. These 5 S are the very important factors in analytical chemistry. Now, why I'm showing you this? For the reason that most of the analytical techniques are able to give you good sensitivity, good selectivity, good separation if you are using chromatography. Many times you get very good high speed or high throughput analysis, but there are only few techniques which give you structure. And I'm going to talk on a topic which is related to a structural elucidation of organic compounds by using hyphenation technique like CMS. Now, by the way, when I'm showing you this particular picture, I'm also trying to tell you what are the precautions to be taken when you are working with analytical instruments, which gives you very high sensitivity. Very important thing which you have to suppress is whatever I put below the feet of the jugular. Okay, so you can see that. I can see that I put something below here, which is trying to suppress. One is sampling error. These include two things: how you select your sample, whether your sample represents the bulk or not. And the second thing is how you prepare your sample. Your sample has to be prepared very well. Your extraction or whatever techniques you are doing for sample preparation should be such that you are completely getting your analyte in the final mixture. Okay, so sample preparation is very important. Background is very important. Background needs to be suppressed. Background comes because of the matrix which is present along with the sample. Okay, so if you are talking about measurement of pesticide residue in a food, the food matrix is going to interfere, provided you do not remove the matrix so that the background from the matrix will not come. Noise is again very common part of any analytical instrument. Many times it is electronic noise, many times it is the noise coming from your matrix itself. Okay, so this noise has to be definitely reduced so that your signal to noise ratio, which is a measure of the sensitivity, that signal to noise ratio would be higher. So, and if you want to have a higher signal to noise ratio, noise definitely has to be suppressed. So with these some introduction to analytical chemistry, let me move to my topic, because the topic which I'm going to deal with is GCMS, where all these 5S are taking high sensitivity, you are getting very high selectivity, you are having a separation from gas chromatograph plus a separation from mass spectroscopy, you are getting a structural elucidation which is possible, and all that is possible with a very high speed. Okay, so let us talk about this particular technique. Well, there are lots of other hyphenation techniques. I have listed some of them. Some of them are probably visible here. Some of them I do not know whether you are able to read it. GCMS, ICMS, LCFTIR, CMS, capillary electrophoresis, GCFTIR, there is LMS, LCMS, CMS, and so on. Okay, so there are many techniques which come under the hyphenation of chromatography to mass spectrometry. Okay, but I am going to talk on GCMS. But before we get into GCMS, I have to inform you that first thing is chromatography is always connected to a mass spectrometry, which is giving you all these advantages. So why chromatography needs to be connected to mass spectrometry? Whether it is GC or whether it is LC. Just now we heard a very nice talk from Dr. Naik talking about the use of LCMS for certain applications. So why chromatography or TLCMS also is possible? So why need to connect chromatography to mass spectrometry? The first reason is that chromatography gives you only one dimension, that is retention time. And on the basis of retention time, you say that the compound may be present. You have to be cautious because there could be many compounds which can have exactly same retention time. So retention time may not be the criteria for considering the presence of a particular compound. Then you have problems. So what mass spectrometry does, it gives you one more dimension, which is called as a molecular weight. So if you know the molecular weight and the retention time and both of them match, you have more confidence in saying that this compound may be present. And if you get along with that, the fragments of that molecule and what we call as a mass spectra, and if the mass spectra matches with the molecular weight matching and the retention time matching, you have more confidence in saying that you are right on the track and this is your compound. So that is how GCMS gives you a lot of information about the particular compound, whether it is present, whether it is not there, or whatever it is. Okay, so you can identify the compound on the basis of this. Well, this is a cartoonist view of a GC. I like to draw cartoons. So this is one of the cartoons which is on how GC is. So GC has a carrier gas. We call it as a mobile phase in chromatography. It is called as a carrier gas because in case of a GC, carrier gas being a mobile phase, it doesn't actually take part in a separation. In case of liquid chromatography, mobile phase is responsible for separation. Carrier gas in GC just carries the sample from the injection port through the column to the detector. Okay, so it's called as a carrier gas. Then we have injection port, you have, of course, pressure and flow control, followed by injection port, followed by the column in which the separation occurs, the column requires to be heated, and then you have a detector and the data system for plotting the chromatograph. Now, let's talk about the sensitivity range of various detectors which are used in chromatography. GC. No, sorry for the time because I'm not able to talk much on gas chromatography. So I'm directly coming to the detectors which are used in GC. There are several detectors which are used in GC, and the last one here is a mass spectrometer as a detector. And as you can see, MS is the most sensitive detector. You can go down to below -12, that is less than picogram. Okay, so that's the kind of a sensitivity which can be achieved. You can see some detectors here, like electron capture detector, nitrogen phosphorus detector, flame photometric detector. These all detectors come closer to mass spectrometer, but they are still not they're still not as sensitive as MS. Another advantage of MS is that if you consider electron capture detector, it is only sensitive to halogenated organic compounds. NPD and this in phosphorus mode and nitrogen mode, they are sensitive to nitrogen and phosphorus containing organic compounds. Same thing is true about APD. It works in two modes, sulfur and phosphorus. Again, it is sensitive in a particular mode for those kind of compounds, organic compounds containing sulfur or phosphorus. GC with FTIR is possible, but it has a very, very poor sensitivity. But if you look at MS, it has the highest sensitivity. Now, there are two modes of operation. One is MS scan and MS sim. We'll learn about these techniques as we move further. Okay, so by this, we know why we require a GCMS and what are the advantages of GCMS in short. We require a GC has to be connected to MS. So we require some kind of interface between GC and MS. GC works at slightly above atmospheric pressure. MS requires a very high vacuum. So you are trying to combine two instruments, one which works at little higher pressure than atmospheric pressure, other works at the level of 10⁻⁵ millimeter of a pressure. So very less than the atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure is 760 millimeter and we are working at 10⁻⁵ millimeter. Okay. So we have to combine these two systems. So we require some kind of an interface between the two. Earlier, people were using pack columns. Now, I mean, people still use pack columns, but to a very less extent compared to what we call capillary columns today. So pack columns were used for some applications where the flow rates are quite high. We use generally 20 ml to 80 ml per minute of a carrier gas flow. And when you allow that flow to enter into mass analyzer, which works under high vacuum, the mass analyzer cannot accept that. And that is why you require to reduce the flow rate. And that is done by the interface, which is called as the jet separation. So by using jet separator, one can reduce the amount of gas entering into mass analyzer here and only sample enters. Most of the carrier gas goes out into the vacuum state. So you have jet from which the carrier gas now sample comes out. And then the sample molecule being heavy, they move further, right, now getting diffused in the area. While carrier gas molecule, which is mostly helium, is used as carrier gas, it diffuses very fast in the area here. And then they can be sucked out by the vacuum. And most of the molecules of sample get into MS. And you have very less amount of carrier gas entering into mass spectrometer. And that way, your concentration of analyte increases in mass spectrometer and the background which can come because of the carrier gas gets reduced. So jet separator makes it possible to use a pack column with the mass analyzer. But as we use today, the capillary column, which uses only 1 ml per minute of a gas flow. Now, if we use 1 ml per minute of a gas flow, then the vacuum system of a mass analyzer can tolerate that. And then we do not require a big interface like jet separator. We require just an heated interface, which is used between the GC and MS. These are two boxes, and the capillary column of a GC enters through this heated interface into the mass analyzer. And there is no other kind of a separation system required. The capillary column directly enters into the ionization part of a mass spectrometer. So the interface is required even in case of a capillary column, but it is much simple interface compared to what we call as a jet separator. Now, of course, as everybody uses capillary column, jet separator has become outdated. Let us quickly go to components of mass analyzer. So we have a sample inlet and
Yes. Yes, sir.
Hello, Mukula.
Yes, we are not
A
finding
problem from his
some
end.
problem. Yeah. Is he there, or he need to log in again? I guess. I think some
Mukula,
connectivity.
he's come. He's come back. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I thought I got disconnected for some time.
Yeah.
Okay. I've come back now. Let me share. My slides are seen now?
Yes, sir. You can start. Yeah.
I can start. Okay. Yeah. So I was talking about the components of a mass spectrometer. Okay. So sample inlet is a GC. Then we have ionization part. So we have to ionize this. That is the prerequisite of a mass analyzer. Mass analyzer, which is shown here, again put my pointer, goes out immediately. Yeah. So mass analyzer works under two things to be followed. One thing is the sample has to be in a vapor form and the sample has to be ionized. So only the charged ions can be separated by applying either electric or magnetic field, and the mass analyzer would be able to work on the basis of mass to charge of the ion. And that is how the separation occurs in mass analyzer. So we require to ionize the compound. And for ionization, we have to use certain methods. So ionization is the most important thing in mass spectroscopy. So let us talk about, I use some punchlines to describe three techniques. One is GC, another is HPLC, the talk which we have just heard, and third is the mass analyzer. So if you ask GC what you can do, GC will tell you that if you can evaporate, I can separate. If you ask LC what you can do, so LC will tell you that if you can dissolve, I can resolve. And if you ask mass analyzer what you can do, mass analyzer will tell you that if you can ionize, I can recognize. So mass analyzer does that part. If you ionize the compound, it will recognize whether it is by using GCMS or by using LCMS or by using ICP-MS. So even elements, it can determined by using ICP-MS. So ionization is the most important thing in mass analyzer. Once the ions enter into mass analyzer will separate them on the basis of mass to charge ratio. The ions get transferred to the detector. Detector will analyze these ions on the basis of their mass to charge ratio, and it will give a signal to data system. You require a very high vacuum in this region. So you require a very good vacuum system so that the ions which are generated here travel through the mass analyzer to the detector without any kind of collision with any other gas molecules, especially if air is present or carrier gas is present. So we remove those kind of collisions by having a very high vacuum. So the ions only get transmitted from here to here, and you have a good sensitivity of measurement of ions, removing all the rest of the things. Okay, so that is how the system works, and that is why you require a very high vacuum. Now let us quickly go to the types of ionization. The ionization is very important because, as I said, and the kind of compounds which we have can be classified into two types. One is volatile samples, other are non-volatile samples. So volatile samples, as I told you the punchline, if you can evaporate the compound, it can be separated by GC. So all the volatile samples can be very easily separated by GC. So you have volatile samples analyzed by GC. Generally, non-volatile samples or thermally labile samples, those can be analyzed by LC, and you require different ionization technique for those compounds, and some of them are listed here. As our talk is basically on GCMS, I'm not going to cover any of these techniques, but only I would like to say that if there are some non-volatile compounds which can be converted into volatile compounds by a technique of chemical derivatization, then those compounds which are non-volatile can be analyzed by GC and then by GCMS. Okay, so first thing which we have to understand that MS is a detector here, like your FID or TCD kind of detectors which are normally used with GC. So MS is also one of the detectors, and if the compound is possible to be separated by GC, non-volatiles can be converted into volatiles and then they can be analyzed by GC. Okay, so, and GCMS, of course. So we have to find out the ionization techniques which are listed here, EI and CI. So let us try to understand what are these EI and CI. EI is electron ionization or electron impact ionization. CI is a chemical ionization. So let's look at what are these two techniques of ionization. Now, electron impact or electron ionization technique is a technique where we bombard electrons onto the molecule, which is already in a gas phase as it enters from the column into the ionization chamber. Because in case of a GC, you evaporate the sample at the injection port, it gets mixed with the carrier gas in form of vapor, gets separated on the column the same way the components of HPLC get separated on the particles of the column. So they get separated on the column, comes out from the column, goes to the ionization chamber in a form, and then bombarded with electron and get ionized and gets fragmented. Because the energy of electron which is used here is very high, which is about 70 electron volts. And that energy is so high that the compound may get fragmented, and also it may get ionized to give you the molecular ion. Okay, so let us see what happens. Okay, so the EI is the most widely used ionization source. It is suitable for volatile compounds, suitable for coupling with GC and probe. Okay, not really coupled to LC today, but earlier it was also coupled to LC. You get M plus radical. So this M plus radical gives you the molecular weight. So the electron from the molecule is knocked off and the molecule becomes positively charged because of that. So the last orbit of the molecule will have the single electron as one electron goes out. So it is called as a radical cation. It produces abundant fragment ions. Because of the hard ionization, because of very high energy electrons, the molecule gets fragmented into small portions. And those portions are having their own mass to charge ratio. And those fragments help us to find out the structure of the molecule. Sometimes if the molecule is very fragile, you may not get M plus. Okay, so this molecular ion may not be located in the spectra because the molecule being fragile, you do not get this ion at all. Okay, then what to do about that? Let us look at it afterwards. One great advantage of using electron ionization with 70 electron volts as energy is that it always gives you similar spectra every time, same spectra every time, to be very precise. So if I do the analysis of a particular sample today, and after a month I will get the same spectra. Whether I do it on one machine or whether I do it on another machine manufactured by somebody else also, as far as 70 electron volt energy of electron is used, I'll get exactly same spectra. So because of that, the library has been generated. There are two commercial libraries available. One is NIST, other one is Willy. And these two libraries contain more than 3 lakhs of organic compounds and their spectra stored. So when you run any sample of yours, once the mass spectra is achieved, this can be compared with the spectra in the library. And if it is there, it will tell you what the compound you are analyzing. And it will give you the name, it will give the index, it will give the structure of that compound. So library searchable spectra has that advantage in case of a GCMS. So let us see how it works. So you have a filament through which you pass the current and it starts generating electrons. The electrons go to an anode, and then you have the sample coming from your column, GC column. It gets ionized, and then it is pushed into the mass analyzer, which is on this side. So then mass analyzer will separate them on the basis of mass to charge ratio. Let us go and find out what kind of ionization happens. So if you have a molecule ABC, it may give you ABC plus 2 electrons, or it may fragment, or it generally fragments to give you AB plus, BC plus, AC plus, A plus, B plus, C plus. So a simple molecule like ABC gives you so much of possibilities. Okay, not that every possibility would happen, but there are so many possibilities. So you will get every information. So you'll get molecular weight if you get ABC plus. You get AB plus, so you will know the molecular species. So like that, you will know more information about this molecule and the mass of every species. And what you have to do is, even if you have a library, even without the library, you can find out what the structure could be. Let us try to understand this better by using a spectra of one compound. I have taken acetophenone, which has got a molecular weight of 120. So you can see ABC plus. I have considered this acetophenone in 3 parts. This is A, phenyl group is A, C double bond O group is B, and CH3 methyl group is C. And you can see 120 is nothing but ABC. Now, what happens when this is the molecular ion? It fragments, so the methyl group is lost, and you get AB plus. So AB plus, if you calculate the molecular weight of this, it is 105. Okay, so you know that 120 to 105, there is a loss of 15, and 15 could be methyl. Then you see a 77, the phenyl group. So this is nothing but A plus. So you are getting information about A plus, that is 77. So ABC, you already got ABC plus, you already got AB plus, you already got A plus. And if you look at this 43, it is nothing but BC plus. Okay, so COCH3 has a molecular weight of 43. So like that, you get information about the molecule and you get a spectra. Now, if you look at this spectra, it is called as relative abundance versus M by Z ratio. That is, intensity of each ion is measured on the basis of considering 105, the highest peak in the spectra or highest intensity of the peak in the spectra, as 100. And on the basis of that, all the intensities of other ions is calculated. So if you look at acetophenone, it will always have this kind of a spectra, not only the masses, but even the ratios between 120, 105, 120, 77, 120, 43, all these will remain exactly the same. Okay, so that's the advantage of the mass analyzer. Yeah, so that is what it is. Okay, so we have to go quickly to the next ionization system, which is called as chemical ionization. In case of a chemical ionization, why it is first of all required? When you have read just now that in case of EI, sometimes you may not get a molecular ion because the molecule being fragile, molecular ion is not available, you only get the fragments. And if you have something which is not possible there in the library and you want to know what is the molecular ion of your compound, you require some technique which is called a soft ionization, which will for sure give you molecular ion. So in this case, in case of chemical ionization, we use some kind of a reagent gas like methane, ammonia, or isobutane, which is admitted first to the ionization chamber. the gas gets ionized. So one of these reagent gas gets ionized, and then in turn, it ionizes your sample to give you MH plus. So you get a protonated ion of a molecule. But then as MH plus is always there, you get a molecular weight information because you have to just subtract one from the molecular ion weight which you get in chemical ionization, and that would become your molecular weight. Okay. So let us look at how it happens. So you have the same electron ionization kind of a device. You have the reagent gas which has been introduced now, which gets ionized first, and then your sample is coming from your GC column. It gets ionized, and then it enters into the mass analyzer. So in this way, you get the chemical ionization done. And now, what kind of reaction happens to the what we call as chemical ionization? So CH4 plus will interact with the electrons to give you CH4 plus. CH4 again fragments to give you CH3 plus. So let us see what happens after. So CH4 plus CH4, another molecule of methane, to give you CH5 plus. And this CH5 plus, which is a metastable ion, interacts with your molecule to give you MH plus. So molecular weight plus a proton added. And that is how you get the molecular weight information of your sample. And molecular weight information is very, very essential for especially when you do not know what could be the molecular weight of your compound, especially you are working on some new compound, you have to know the molecular weight information. It is like solving a jigsaw puzzle. No? If you get the fragments, you may not know what is the molecular weight. Now, for example, if I give you some 100 pieces of the jigsaw puzzle pieces and ask you to make the picture out of that, it is very difficult. But if I tell you the picture looks like this and I show you the picture, then possibly you will be able to easily build the structure. So it is like that. So if you know the molecular weight, you can assemble those pieces very easily to get to the molecular weight of the compound. Then there is something called as negative ion chemical ionization. So what happens as the reagent gas is present in the ionization chamber, the electrons, when they bombard the reagent gas, there is a possibility of the energy of electron getting reduced to very low voltage. I mean, it becomes so many electron volts. From 70 electron volts, it becomes 0.4 electron volts or 0.5 electron volts. Now, those electrons can be captured by molecule provided it has electron affinity. So such molecule will become negatively charged because of the capturing of electrons, and they give you much higher sensitivity. So we have two types of ionization in chemical ionization. One is positive ion chemical ionization, where we get MH plus, and where we have a negative ion chemical ionization where we get M minus. So if we have positive ion chemical ionization, you get molecular weight information for sure. You get increased selectivity for many compounds, and selectivity affected by reagent gas. So depending upon which gas you choose for the analysis, you may get better selectivity for some of the ions. Okay, I'm not going to the last one at the moment because of, yeah. So I want to move to the next, where we can compare now. This is two compounds, amitriptyline and cyclobenzapine. Both are analyzed by EI. Now, when you analyze them by EI, being not very stable compounds, thermally or structurally stable, labile compounds, they will not give you molecular weight information. So 277 is the molecular weight, you don't see that. 275 the molecular weight, you hardly see anything here. So you have problems when you have these kind of compounds. But then you have a chemical ionization. Then you have no problem because it gives you the molecular weight now. So 277, you get a molecular weight of 278, so proton added. 275, you get a molecular weight of 276, again a proton added. So by using chemical ionization, you definitely get molecular weight information, whatever may be the compound. Then we have negative ion chemical ionization, which is also useful for some of the compounds, and it gives you much higher sensitivity, 100 times more sensitive than PICI, very selective towards halogenated compounds. So one of the application could be to measure pesticide residues in food. Okay, so that's one of the major application which is coming. And in Pune, there are a lot of food testing labs, and one is very, very much known in the world. It is NRCG. Okay, so National Research Center for Grapes, and they do a lot of such analysis, and they have very sophisticated lab to do any kind of pesticide analysis in food. And there are a lot of other testing labs which have come in Pune, but especially the analysis of the agricultural products near Pune and Pune district. Okay, so that's so in summary of ionization, the molecule can get ionized in these ways. It can give you M plus, so electron gets bombarded, 2 electrons come out to give M plus. With reagent gas, it may give you MH plus. This is protonation, so you can definitely get a molecular weight. M plus E, if the molecule has electron affinity, it will capture electron to give M negative, and that's generally with halogenated compound. And sometimes it may give an adduct, so something else gets added to that, and you may get Ma plus. So adduct ion formation is also likely. So again, we are not talking about it right now. Let us go ahead to the next part. So now we are going to talk about the mass analyzers. Okay. So mass analyzer is very useful technique, and it can do lots of things. Okay, so it can do qualitative and quantitative composition of both organic and inorganic analytes. It can measure molecular weights up to even 200,000 Daltons. So molecular weight up to very high protein molecules or very high molecular weight polymers can be analyzed by using mass spectrometer. The structures of a wide variety of complex molecular species can be found out. It can be used for isotopic ratio analysis. The structure and composition of solid surfaces can be measured, and the accuracy and precision of whatever you do, it is excellent by using a mass spectrometer. Yes. Isotopes can be analyzed by, because isotopes have different masses, so isotopes also can be analyzed by mass spectrometry. Now we'll quickly go into what is the basics of MS, what is MS, components of MS, mass spectra, identification and quantification by mass spectra. So mass spectrometer is an analytical instrument that answers the question what is in the sample and how much is present. So it can be used for both qualitative and quantitative analysis with a very high sensitivity. I mean, to talk about sensitivity, you can easily go down to femtogram level. We talk about something like molecular, microgram to picogram or nanogram, which is parts per billion, to picogram, which is -12, -15 is femtogram. And today mass spectrometer can go easily up to femtogram level. There are so many mass analyzers: magnetic sector, quadrupole, ion trap, Fourier transform, time of flight, and then there are a lot of hybrid mass analyzers. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm only going to concentrate on one, which is called as quadrupole, because most of the GCMS systems use quadrupole. So about 90 to 95% GCMS are with quadrupole mass analyzer. But just to enter into quadrupole, I thought I should just talk about magnetic field mass analyzer, which is, as we know that any charged species can be deflected by using a magnet. So magnet can be used for separating the masses when they are charged. So you produce the mass to charge ratio ions into the ion source, and then they are pushed into the magnetic field. And this is a horseshoe type of magnet. The magnetic field is acting vertically, and you can see the ions of various M by Z are getting separated by using a magnetic field mass analyzer. So generally, this kind of a magnetic field mass analyzer is not popular today, but in the initial period of development of a mass spectroscopy, only these were available. Nothing else was available at that time. So which we call as double focusing magnetic sector instrument was very popular till about 1960. And once the quadrupole mass analyzer came into existence, these mass analyzers slowly became obsolete as far as the general use of GCMS is concerned. I'm not going into the details, but this is the equation which was used to calculate M by Z with respect to the magnetic field, with respect to the radius of curvature, the one which is followed by the ion, and V is the acceleration voltage, the voltage at which we push the ions into the ionization chamber. Okay. The magnetic sector machine is a very huge machine. It requires a big room for itself. It requires chiller for cooling the magnet because we are using electromagnet by passing very high current through the magnet, through the coil. So coil needs to be cooled. So it's a huge system and very costly system. Compared to that, quadrupole mass analyzer is very cheap and very less costly and less troublesome for the analysis of most of the samples. Okay, so quadrupole mass analyzer, as you can see, there are 4 poles. Each pole is about 20 centimeter to 30 centimeter in length. It has diameter of about 8 millimeter to 10 millimeter. And these 4 poles are exactly of identical size. And what we apply onto this quadrupole is a DC RF field, that is radio frequency and a DC voltage. Both are applied in such a way that at one moment of time, if these 2 opposite rods are positive, these 2 rods will be negative and the charge varies. So if these 2 are positive at one moment, very next moment, these 2 will become negative. And at that time, these will be positive. Now this DC RF voltage is scanned onto the quadrupole in such a way that at one particular DC RF voltage, one ion gets stabilized and go to the detector. At that DC RF voltage, now ion shown by this orange color goes out. It doesn't go to the detector. So at one particular DC RF voltage, only one ion goes to the detector of a particular M by Z value. Now, if I want this ion to go to the detector, this DC RF voltage has to be adjusted in such a way that this ion gets stabilized in the field and go to the detector. But at that time, the ion shown by green color will go on. So by scanning DC RF voltage, I can see all the ions in my sample as they get fragmented and as they come out to the ionization chamber. I can see all of them one after the other. So it does a good ion filtration one after the other and tells me what is present in my sample with all the M by Z values of all the ions which get generated in the ion source are measured in this scan mode. Now, if I use a scan mode, I get what we call as a mass spectra, which will tell me the structure of a compound. Now, if I know the structure of a compound, if I already know everything and I want to quantitate that compound in my given sample. Now, as I know the compound, I do not need a mass spectra completely. I will use one of the ion which gives me higher intensity for quantification of it. And then what I can do is I will fix the DCRF voltage in such a way that only one ion goes to the detector all the time. Because when that voltage is fixed, only one ion with that particular mass to charge ratio will go to the detector, and I will be able to do a better quantitation of that because of the continuous measurement of that ion now. And then if I operate this particular machine in this mode, it is called as operation in SIM mode, single ion monitoring mode. So when I showed you the picture of those comparison of those detectors, I had put there scan and SIM. So scan mode, you get the structure. SIM mode, you get to do a good quantitative analysis of your sample. So I'm not going into details of how it works, etc. because of the time. This is how a GCMS system looks. So this is GC and this is the mass spectrometer. Okay. So this is a quadrupole mass analyzer. And in the two, there is interface which is called as heated interface. So capillary column which is in the oven directly goes into the mass analyzer where ionization is done. So we require detector system for analyzing ions, and we have two types of detectors here. Electron multiplier is one of them, and the other one is the multiplier. Not because of the time I am running really a little fast. Dynode photomultiplier tube and dynode electron multiplier. These are the two detectors which are used for counting the ions which are coming out of the mass analyzer to what is called as to give you a mass spectra. This is the photomultiplier tube kind of a detector. So you have ions coming, they get converted into electrons. Electron hit the phosphor. Phosphor will give the photons, and photons get into photomultiplier tube, and photomultiplier tube will detect the signal. Okay, so that is how the photomultiplier tube detector works. Then you require high vacuum system, and vacuum system of a mass analyzer consists of two types of pumps. One is called as the rotary pump, which gives you the vacuum of -3, and then there is a turbomolecular pump, which gives a vacuum of -5. Only condition is that the turbo pump becomes on once you get -3 level of vacuum. Till that time, turbo pump will never be on. So you require to monitor the vacuum by using something called as vacuum gauges. And we have two types of gauges to monitor the vacuum. One is called as Pirani gauge and the other one is called as Penning gauge. Pirani gauge works on the principle of thermal conductivity. It gives you the vacuum level of to -3 torr or -3 millimeter, while the Penning gauge, which works on the ionization of gases, principle of ionization of gases, it goes up to -9. What we require for GCMS, normal GCMS is -5. For some of the high resolution mass analyzers, which I'm not going to cover, they require a high vacuum of -8 or -9. This is something which is required for how do you know whatever mass you are measuring is the real mass of your compound. You require to calibrate the instrument, and calibration is done by using perfluorotributylامine as a compound. And this compound is a part of your GC. It is stored in a small flask from where when you tell the instrument to do the tuning of a mass analyzer or do mass calibration, this solution, vapor of this solution automatically goes into the ionization chamber, it gets ionized, and you get a mass spectra of that compound. And that is already stored in a memory of the computer as a default. And if when you do the calibration, if it exactly matches with the spectra which is stored in the tune file, then your instrument is working. If it is not, if there is any fluctuation anywhere, the instrument automatically starts calibrating himself, changing the voltage on various components within the machine to see that this spectra is obtained. So this mass calibration has to be done once in a while so that whatever information you are going to get by your mass spectrometer instrument is valid for the given period of given number of samples which you are going to use with this instrument. So calibration is very, very important in mass spectroscopy. And of course,
Excuse me,
very
sir.
important in every instrument. Sorry?
Hello.
My time is up?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Sorry to interrupt, but yes.
Yeah, okay, I will. It is just few slides more. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank you,
calibration of the mass analyzer is very important. This is the kind of information you get. You get what is called as total ion chromatograph. And this is the mass spectra of one of the compound which has a retention time of 5 minutes. Okay. So you get complete information. I will just show you quickly how now this is a peak, which is a zoom peak. So the width of the peak is bit more because it has been zoomed. And then what there is a cursor. You can take a cursor or any point on this peak, you get a mass spectra. So here you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm getting 4 mass spectra for the same peak. And if these 4 mass spectra are exactly identical, as you can see, there is no variation. That means this peak is pure. There is nothing else out here. So you can also look at the peak purity by taking the mass spectra on various positions. And this mass spectra would be able to tell you what is the structure of this compound. Okay. So this is how you can work with a mass spectrometry. Then this is what is called as TIC, total ion chromatogram. And if I want to do the quantitation, I select one of the mass and I have selected 270, and this is working now in sim mode. And this peak is only given because the other 3 or other compounds do not have 270 mass. So at their retention time, I'm not seeing anything. So only 270 can be monitored. Here I'm monitoring 264 specifically, and nothing else can be seen. Now, when I monitor this peak, now this can be used very well for quantitation because here signal will be much, much higher compared to the signal here. So you can monitor this very easily, and there is no background going to come here because this is very specific to mass of 264. You can do quantitation by again using a mass spectrometer. So you can use a sim mode, use the standard for quantitation, and then calibration graph, and you can quantitate the sample very easily by using a mass spectrometer. But these are applications. Remember one thing, compounds which are possible to be vaporized only can be analyzed by mass spectrometer. So there are lots of samples which can be analyzed for environmental analysis, both air, water, soil, food, especially pesticide residue analysis is very much important as far as GCMS is concerned. Lots of pharmaceutical compounds, especially steroids, can be analyzed very easily. Lots of petrochemicals. It is most of the compounds are volatile, even up to C34 hydrocarbons are volatile. Flavor and fragrance is one of the major applications. So there are lots of industries which work with flavor and fragrance, and all those compounds, they are highly vaporizable and they can be measured very easily by using a mass spectrometer. Forensic sciences has a lot of applications for mass spectrometry. Then sports doping is one of the major subjects. So whenever any athletic event or Olympic events are there, the sportsmen who are participating, their blood and urine samples are analyzed by GCMS, even by LCMS and other techniques for checking whether they are working under the influence of any drug. And then, of course, it is used for basic R&D. Well, fine. Thank you very much for your participation and listening to me for a long time. Thank you, the organizers, especially ISAS, for inviting me for this particular session. Thank you so much. Yeah, any questions? If there is a time, I can take.
Yeah, so the question answer session is handed over to Dr. Ayesha. Over to you, ma'am. Any quick questions?
Thank you, Mukula. Participants, you are requested to post your questions, quick questions in the chat box, please. I think we will just summarize all the questions and we can just, yeah, Chandrachudan sir, please. Yes, sir, you can speak.
Yeah, that was a very informative talk, and it will compress for want of time, but it was very informative. Thank you very much, Dr. Datta.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Over to Mukula, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ayesha. So we are now going to for our next speaker, Dr. Nilima Bulak, ma'am. And may I request Dr. Anupa Kumbhar to introduce her. Over to you, Dr. Anupa, ma'am.
Yes, sir, can you please stop sharing your screen?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mukula. Our next speaker is Dr. Nilima Bulak from CSIR National Chemical Laboratory, Pune.
Anupa, go to previous slide.
Ma'am, just check the slide, please. Yeah, great.
Our next speaker is Dr. Nilima Bulak, madam, from CSIR National Chemical Laboratory, Pune. Dr. Nilima Bulak has completed her PhD and MPhil in material science. She is the winner of Professor S.S. Joshi Prize and is a principal technical officer in Polymer Science and Engineering Group of the National Chemical Laboratory. She is having about 35 years of industrial research experience and more than 25 papers in the area of polymers and conducted many workshops on thermal analysis in Venture Center, Pune. Her current research interest is technology development in polymer electrolyte membrane fuel cells. Currently, she is working on indigenous development of high and low temperature fuel cells. India's first truly indigenous developed hydrogen fuel cell bus, which is launched on 21st August 2022 and developed by KPIT CSIR, is the outcome of her teamwork at National Chemical Laboratory. With this brief introduction, I request Dr. Nilima Bulak to give her talk on Introduction to Thermal Analysis, DSC and TGA, Applications and Data Interpretation. Over to you, Nilima madam.
Yeah, thank you, Anupama. I'll share my screen first. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, I'll share my slides. Can you just tell me whether my slides are visible?
Yes.
Okay, my voice level is okay?
Yes, you can start.
Okay. Yes. So, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nilima. Thanks, Anupa, for introducing me. And first thing is that I would like to thank all IS organizing committee and members for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to talk with you guys. So today I will talk on thermal analysis. Actually, you tell me one thing, that whatever, and I mean, do you agree that any entity on the earth has to undergo the temperature variation during its lifetime? Just imagine anything which is existing on the earth, including our human body. See, because human body also experiencing a temperature range from 4 to 45, from winter to summer. Like anything which exists on the earth, living or non-living, has to undergo this thermal temperature variations during its lifetime, and say. And it's very important to know what is happening with its property when you heat the material, or when it experiences the changes in the temperature. Imagine a part of a car engine which is sitting aram se at room temperature. Nothing, it's all good mechanical properties, everything fine, in a good shape and all and all. And when you start your engine and drive a car for 2 hours, your engine gets heated. And let's say heat is around 40 degree plus. And suppose that part is started deforming, melting. And then what will happen to your engine? What will happen to your car? Very difficult and can't imagine type of answer question, no? Okay. So thermal analysis is a technique which measures what is happening with a property of the material when you heat it. Okay. It's a very simple and very important technique. As I already told you, it's a group of techniques, because you know, when you heat the material, a lot of things will happen. Sorry for that. Yeah. When you heat the material, lots of things will happen. Once the material is heated, it changes its mass, it changes its optical properties, it changes its mechanical properties, it changes its electrical properties, sound properties, and everything. And depending upon the type of application where you are going to use your use your material, it's important for you to know the properties of your material a priori before giving that material to the desired application. So long time back, it's not that much new technique. It's a very pretty old and widely used technique in polymer and material science industry. So a group of thermal techniques has evolved under the broad name of thermal analysis. So thermal analysis is, as I already told you, is a group of techniques that study the properties of material as it changes with the material, as it changes with the heat. Now, different properties can be measured. If you want to measure the mass of the material, if it changes with the temperature, then you need to go for a thermogravity. If you want to measure the, let me take the laser point. Yeah. If you want to measure the heat changes with respect to specific changes with respect to temperature in your material, then you will go for a differential scanning calorimeter. If you want to measure the deformation in your material with the temperature, then you can go for the thermomechanical analysis. If you want to measure the mechanical properties, what is going to happen with the storage modulus, loss modulus, deformity, shape of your sample, all engineering properties, then you select a dynamic mechanical analysis. If you want to see the dielectric properties, go for dielectric analysis. If you want to measure the optical properties, go for optometry, thermooptometry. Similarly for current, thermoelectrometry, and for sound, thermosoniometry. So you see how much variety of techniques are included in this broad area of thermal analysis. Of course, the sensor for each technique is different. And today, I'm going to talk about, my talk will be more on the practical and more useful for the students, not for our senior dignitaries. Kindly excuse me for that. But what I observed being in an NCL for last many years, students know how to do the experiment, but they cannot read the data, or they don't know what technique to do for what properties they want to know. So my talk will be more beneficial for the students, research students. Okay. So what, as we were talking on thermal analysis, what you need for the experiments? You need a sample holder because you want to conduct an experiment. Then you need a sensor, because we can measure different properties. So based on the property of your interest, you will be choosing a sensor. Then you need an enclosure because you want to conduct the experiment, and a computer nowadays to collect your data. So today, since the time is not that much, we will focus on thermogravimetric analysis, differential scanning, calorimeter, if the time permits, on dynamic mechanical analysis. Because what I found in my research areas that these are the three techniques which are widely used and widely gives information which is for the practical use for the processors and the manufacturers. Being in a polymer industry for so many years, I can definitely say that. So our talk will be generally, it will include a general introduction of the technique. I will not go into the details of the theory because you can get it nowadays on the just one click of your computer. Then we will see the principle of operation. For the students, what is the sample size and what should be the shape of the sample to get a good quality data? What is the general instrumentation? How does a typical curve look? How to read that curve and what information you get that from technique. So first technique is thermogravimetric analysis. As the name, gravimetric analysis, you measure the mass, you measure the amount of weight change as a function of temperature or time in a controlled atmosphere. Kindly pay attention, I'm using the word controlled atmosphere because here you can do the sample either in nitrogen also or in air also, depending upon what type of information you want. Because sometimes your materials get reacted with the nitrogen and unnecessary there will be a weight gain in your instrument. So a priori, you should know that exactly what type of information you want and then you choose your atmosphere. This technique can be used to heat your material from room temperature to 1000 and some furnaces can go to 2000 degrees centigrade also. Sample required is very small from 1 mg to 10 mg and heating rate can be varied from 1 to 50 degrees centigrade. As I told you, I will be just giving you a glance of instrumentation. This is how the TGA instrument symbolically looks. You are having a furnace where you put your sample and you heat that sample and that your sensor is attached to a balance and you are measure the weight change as a function of temperature. Now there are two types of arrangements available. One is a vertical balance type where your balance is directly connected to the sample, and second one with a horizontal balance where an optical sensor is there. But you as an end user, we should not worry about what type of balance our machine is having and all, because whatever machine, either of machine you use, you get the output of the machine is like this. So what is this for students? Y-axis is weight percent and x-axis is temperature. So I am measuring weight change as a function of temperature in a controlled atmosphere. So this I'm showing you the TGA, thermogravimetric analysis curves of some polymers. Let's concentrate on red curve, how to read that this curve. So red curve, this one is, so as I heat my material, there is no change in my material up to 420 degrees centigrade. After that, my material started degrading. I mean, it's losing its weight. And at around 450 again, it started stabilizing its weight. That's why a common person will read this curve. But yes, it is important for a manufacturer because the manufacturer will come to know that yes, my material is stable up to 400. There is absolutely no weight loss in my material up to 400 degrees centigrade. But at 450 degrees centigrade, there is around 80% of weight loss in my substance and there is some 20% residue remaining in that. See, such a simple experiment gave you such an information for a manufacturer. Okay, now let's concentrate on blue curve. This blue curve, there is one step, then again constant, then degradation and constant, and that if I extrapolate my this thing, there is zero. So how I read it? That yes, up to 100 degrees centigrade, there is some weight loss. Now this is a nylon sample, and all of us know that nylon absorbs water. So I can say that yes, this nylon sample absorbs around 18% of water because water evaporates before 150 degrees centigrade. Then nylon material is stable up to 380 degrees centigrade. It degraded and with no residue because the weight remains after my experiment is completed zero. So see, in a one single experiment, I came to know that my total material is degrading. There is water in my material. My thermal stability of sample is up to 380 degrees centigrade. If you concentrate on green curve, you can see that there is two-step degradation mechanism in my material. So I can definitely say that there are either two-step degradation or some material is added which is having equivalent property and degradation process of that. Let's not spend much time on that. TGA typical application includes polymer thermal and oxidative stability, polymer degradation profile, because we have seen that straight curve with residue, without residue, double steps in TGA. You can find out the inorganic filler content in the material. Then volatile compound percent which degrades below 200 degrees centigrade, and plasticizer contents. These are the typical applications people use TGA for this type of application. Now for any equipment we see that whenever you are using equipment, the equipment should be calibrated. Otherwise, the information which you are landing up with will be a wrong information. Now, here what we are measuring? Mass and temperature. So what needs to be calibrated? Mass and temperature, of course. So calibration of TGA includes mass calibration. So always use the standards supplied by the equipment manufacturer. And second thing is temperature calibration, because you are going to measure the thermal stability of sample. So temperature calibration is extremely important. It is a little bit difficult to carry, but nowadays these manufacturers are provided us the Curie point standards. What is Curie point standards? These are the magnetic materials which loses its affinity towards magnetization upon heating. So you get, you get exactly sharp weight change in your TGA curve. Let's see how it looks. This is called a Curie point or 4-point calibration curve. I'm heating one ferromagnetic, this Curie point standard material in my TGA, and if you see at 146.3 degrees centigrade, there is a sharp lose of magnetization and you get a sharp weight loss. Similarly, at different points, I have a different standards over here, and I can calibrate my instrument up to 900 degrees centigrade. So temperature calibration, and for mass calibration, there are materials like calcium oxalate for which that weight change or weight losses at particular temperature are known as per their reactions. Like, calcium oxalate, if you heat, it forms calcium carbonate, water get evaporated, how much water percentage get evaporated, you can exactly calibrate it, do the mass calibration also here. I will not spend much time because I know that most of you are doing this in your area. Second thing is this baseline calibration is important, because whenever in thermal analysis, any experiment you do, your baseline should be straight. Because if something, suppose the previous user has done something and his material is there in the bottom of your TGA furnace or TGA sample holder, and it's invisible sample, you in a hurry put your sample weight and start your experiment. And if your that material, previous sample user's material, start interfering in your data, then you will land up with the wrong information. So I advise you that before doing or before starting your day with the TGA experiment, just do an empty run. That is called a baseline. Empty run with the sample holder to check that nothing is there in your sample holder and your baseline is absolutely straight over the temperature range of interest. Here you can see from room temperature to 1000 degrees centigrade, my baseline is totally completely straight. And if there is little variation in the baseline, only you can see here that 4% variation, 0.4%. Almost 4% variation in the baseline is only allowed to get a good quality TGA data. So in TGA, many of you must have observed that always you get a weight loss, but some of you might have observed weight gain also. So let's see why you get a weight loss and when you get the weight gain. So you get weight loss in TGA curves when you get a decomposition, loss of water, combustion, reduction of metal oxides, vaporization, evaporation, sublimation, desorption, and many physical transitions like drying. If water gets evaporated, you get weight loss. If you get weight gain, it must be wrong selection of your purging material, because in some of your material can react with your purging material and form oxides, because of which you can get a weight gain also, or reactions of the gaseous substance which are evolving with the purge gas. Because see, your gas is continuously, your sample loader is continuously purging with your inert atmosphere or atmosphere of interest. And if your purge gas interact with that, then you get a weight gain in your TGA curve. And an expert can easily identify that. Now, there are many variables that could affect your TGA reproducibility. Because in science, we always talk about reproducibility. What is the reproducibility rate? I'm developing a technology, and I'll tell you that reproducibility is a big challenge. We are testing our samples 1,000 times, 100 times to get the reproducibility. And in science, all of our researchers, we know how the reproducibility is important. So, what are the factors which affect the TGA reproducibility curve? First thing is calibration. Second thing is furnace cleanliness. Sample preparation is extremely important, because if you are having a non-conducting material, and if you are keeping a chunk of that material in your TGA sample holder and heating that, only, see, your heaters are sitting at the bottom of your sample holder. Now, only from the bottom, if your sample is getting heated, and if you are keeping a chunk of around, let's say, 7 to 8 mm height wala, then there will be a temperature lag in the sample itself, and then you will not get the correct result. So that sample preparation is extremely important. And of course, the temperature range of interest. Suppose your material is degrading at 800 degrees centigrade, and if you have record your sample up to only 400 or 500 degrees centigrade, you will end up with the no information. Scanning rate is also important, because I will show you some graphs where if you vary the scanning rate, what is the difference in the data quality, and sample atmosphere, which already we have talked. Also, the other factors are ramp rate, because if you change the heating rate, the onset of your degradation changes with the heating, it increases with the heating rate. Purge gas, we have already talked. And sample weight, that also I told you, because if you take the sample weight which is higher beyond the capacity of your sample balance, then of course definitely you are going to land up with the wrong results. I was talking about the purge rate. Now I'll show you this sample. This is a manganese sample, and suppose manganese sample we do in nitrogen. Generally, people comes and tell that I want to do my TGA in an inert atmosphere. Inert atmosphere is nitrogen. So if you do your manganese sample in a nitrogen, manganese forms, it reacts with nitrogen, it forms manganese nitride. And then, you get a weight gain in your sample. So when you are using a manganese sample, you have to go for an argon gas, where there will not be a weight gain. So a priori, you should know your sample a little bit also. Second thing is that I told you that you can find out the percentage of failure also. In polymer industry, many times what happens, these manufacturers, they put ingredients into their sample for the betterment of the properties also, and for the economy also. So what percentage, and if they vary the percentage of by 1% also, for them it is a huge profit, but for us it is a huge loss, because percentage of failure is going to affect all our properties, mechanical properties, weight loss, haze, optical properties, and everything. So suppose you have fix some weight percentage, you can find out that weight percent using this TGA. You do a TGA of your base material, and then you do a TGA of your filled material. If suppose your base material, which is a rate, is degrading 100%, and your filled material has given you this type of weight, this difference is your filler content. In this case, this material PP is filled with 80% of the filler. So this way, TGA can help you in quality control also. Now we are talking about the modern techniques. Nowadays, only TGA is not sufficient to get enough information of your sample. So, these techniques are always coupled with some modern techniques. So that is called hyphenated technique. So what is hyphenated? Hyphenation refers to the process of connecting two or more instruments together for the purpose of increasing the amount of information obtained from a single experiment from a sample. Now suppose, in this, not suppose, TGA FTIR hyphenated technique, the TGA gases are connected to your FTIR instrument. So an experimentalist or an expert can find out what are the evolved gases connected with the FTIR. Similarly, TGA is connected with GC to find out the gas chromatographic details of your material, with GCMS, and with all these four, TGA plus FTIR plus GC plus MS. After, of course, with increasing a number of techniques, increases the cost of your machine, like anything. But this is the requirement of today's modern technology, and there are many equipments and manufacturers and suppliers available for this type of hyphenated techniques, which are being mostly used in the modern analytical techniques and in high-end laboratories. There is also one more simultaneous thermal analyzer, where you can do a DSC and TGA together. DSC we will see in the next 5 minutes only. So DSC and TGA, here you can record the weight loss also and heat capacity also. At a single time, the machine is having two sensors in a one experiment. So these are hyphenated techniques. Now quickly, we will go to the differential scanning calorimeter. You can stop me anytime and ask question if you have, or I'll take it at the end of the technique, as you said. I'll talk for now next 10 to 15 minutes on DSC, and if time permits on DMA. So DSC, it measures the differential heat flow between a sample and a reference as a function of time and temperature. This measures the differential heat flow. It gives us the first or second order transitions of the material. Sample size is 1 mg to 10 mg. Heating rate can vary from 1 to 50 degrees, and atmosphere from it can be nitrogen or air. It's a pretty old technique. First calorimeter was used by Blanc, and which is improved by Lavoisier and Laplace in 1780. These they have a huge body like this. What they did, they kept a heated body in an ice, and then the water melted because of the heated body they kept in an ice, and then the amount of melted water was proportional to the heat subtracted. That was the first calorimeter recorded in the history of science. Now we have many modern technologies in this AC. So there are two types of AC: heat flux and power compensated. So heat flux, in heat flux for the major difference, I'll tell you, there is in one block. Here, one block where your sample and reference are sitting, you have a single heater where your sample and reference are sitting in one block. The sensor here is a thermocouple. And what you do, you measure the temperature difference between the sample and reference. That much simple. So whenever there is a transition occurred in a sample box, there will be a temperature difference which is measured by the heat flux. So in a very simple language, it measures the difference between the sample and reference. And the second one is power compensated. Here, the difference is that sample and reference are sitting on a separate block of the blocks. And here, the differential power required to maintain these two at an equilibrium is measured. Sensor is, of course, there are different thermocouple only, but there are different sensors for a heater and a sample. This sample holder can be aluminum, stainless steel, or platinum. And here, differential thermal power required to maintain these two at an equilibrium is measured. As I told you in case of DAC, TGA also, don't worry which DAC you are using, power compensated or heat flux. The information you will be getting is of same quality. The data output is of similar quality. Might be students might be knowing also which DAC they are using. Okay. So what does DAC do? DAC measures the heat flows and temperature associated with the transitions in the material as a function of time and temperature in a controlled atmosphere. It gives qualitative and quantitative information about chemical and physical changes in the sample, like endothermic or exothermic. Whenever there is melting of the sample, it's an endothermic. When there is crystallization, it's an exothermic. It's more commonly used than TGA for polymer industry. So as I told you, it measures first and second order transition. Now students, for you, I'll just explain them for each other. Second order transitions, it involves change in the heat capacity only, like glass transition temperature. And first order transitions, it involves latent heat and heat capacity changes like melting and crystallization. And DAC is the combination of that both. It measures second order and first order transitions together. So this is how our DAC curve looks. Second order transition, that is glass transition temperature, TG, most commonly called capital T and small g. Don't get confused between TG, that is thermogravimetric, and here TG, that is glass transition temperature. So whenever you get exotherm in DAC, it's crystallization. When you get melting in the DAC, it's melt. Endotherm in the DAC, it's melting. Never, never, never allow your material to degrade or decompose in DAC because it will spoil your sample order. And if you are doing a cross-linking or pure kinetics, you will get an exotherm because that is the heat evolved. Whenever any exothermic reaction, you get a crystallization or exothermic in that. So what DAC can measure? It measures the glass transition temperature, melting and crystallization temperature, heat of fusion and crystallization, curing kinetics, purity of the sample. It's very important in pharma industries. A fingerprint of polymers. For polymer people, I'll just tell you that each polymer is having a definite melting point. And suppose you are appearing for an interview and somebody tells you that I'm giving an unknown material, how you will identify that? So very simple. First tell them that you do a TGA of that sample, thermogravimetric analysis, find out the degradation temperature. Then based on that degradation temperature, I will do a DAC of that sample below my degradation temperature and find out what is the melting temperature of that material, and I will find out what polymer it is. See, fingerprint of polymer. This is a combined, I've done it in my PhD days. This is the combined DSC curve starting from LDPE, HDPE, polypropylene, PBT, PET, PPS, and PTFE. Each material is having a characteristic melting, and we can identify the unknown material using this. As I told you, we are measuring heat capacity and temperature. So of course, calibration should be of the temperature and should be of the heat capacity of the sample. So along with our equipments, our manufacturers have provided us the standards. Standards are the materials, pure metals, which are having known melting points and which are having known heat capacity also. So to take a very small amount of that material, heat it with a very small or very low heating rate. See that your sample and reference match are having the similar weight. Your baseline is straight, and then measure over the temperature of interest its melting and heat capacity change of that standard material. So calibrant, we call it standard material. They should be of high purity, accurately known enthalpies. It should not react with sample pan, atmosphere. So some calibrations, indium has its melting point at 156.6, and its heat capacity is also known. So there are different mental standards for different temperatures. Like TGA also, here also, baseline should be standard. You should calibrate it with the heat capacity and melting. And like I told you, in TGA, there should not be a chunk of sample. Like that in DSC also, there should not be chunk of sample. This is how DSC sample pans look. This is a good sample pan. Sorry for that. This is a bad sample pan. In a good sample pan, you see my surface of my sample is uniformly spread over the sample holder. And in a bad, it's having a chunk. I put chunk in that. So this is having bad thermal conductivity. Excuse me. Yeah. So this is a bad and this is a good sample pan. Now, DSC usually done in an inert atmosphere like nitrogen, because in air, sample may react or oxidize. Then moisture content can be controlled if you use an inert atmosphere. So it's always advisable to use DSC in an inert atmosphere. And I think I have told you that accurately weight sample pan, sample material, avoid weight, excess weight. So, small sample mass, low heating rate, it increases the resolution. But see, it decreases the sensitivity. But nowadays, with advanced techniques, I think the sensitivity has also improved like anything. So DSC can measure glass transition temperature, melting temperature, heat of melting, crystallization kinetic, curing, and polymer blends. I'll take you for the research students that what are the factors that affects the glass transition temperature, because TG is such a material important property that based on our TG you can define the working temperature of your component, and if your TG varies, your property of your end material varies, and it's extremely important to know the TG of your sample. And before that, it is extremely important to know what are the factors that affect your TG. So heating rate of DSC affects the sensitivity increase hote, but it affects the reproducibility. Aging of your material affects the glass transition temperature. Molecular weight, plasticizer, side chain, polymer backbone, and hydrogen bonding. These are the factors which affect the TG. I'll take you one by one through this. Suppose your sample, you are using a polymer sample, which should be like this black curve. But if you are getting the curve like pink one in your DSC, it shows you that your sample is aged because you kept it for a long time on a shelf. So don't use this sample because this material, pink and black, is having a different materials, different material properties. So aging affects the TG of your sample. Similarly, molecular weight. If you increase the molecular weight, your TG is going to increase. See, for the oligomer, styrene oligomer, if you increase the molecular weight from 104 to 170 K, TG increases from minus 138 degrees centigrade to 100 degrees centigrade, a difference of around 140 degrees centigrade based on the molecular weight. So if you are synthesizing your sample and getting different TG, it's a quick way to find out that what is the that your molecular weight of your sample is different. Of course, there are different ways you can find out it using GPC and all, but a quick way. It's an indirect way. Please believe me, trust me. Otherwise, you will just use TG to find out the molecular weight. It's not there. Plasticizers. Nylon samples, we know that going to absorb moisture, and if you increases the moisture content, TG varies from 94 degrees centigrade to 6 degrees centigrade. Again, the variation of around 90 degrees centigrade because of just increase in the moisture content. Similarly, side chains. If you increase the number of side chains, if you increase the bulky side chains, the TG increases from -36 to 161, because here I'm having 4 C6H, I mean benzene rings with my and if one chain, one hydrogen, I'll get -36 degrees centigrade. Polymer backbone. If you increase the number of repeating units in your polymer, your TG rate decrease because you are increasing the number of flexible groups over here. TG is the measure of molecular motions in the polymer. That is a separate point of discussion, but I'll just take you into the glance what is exactly happening with it. Effect of hydrogen. Yeah, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. You have 5 minutes remaining.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I will stop after DSC. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So hydrogen bonding. If you increase the hydrogen bonding, TG increases from 59 to 159 degrees centigrade. Now, what you can from melting curve also, you can find out the purity of your sample. Because see, the same sample, if you are getting a sharp melting, your material is pure. And if you are getting this type of broad melting, asymmetric melting, the same material I'm talking about, then you get you can say that there is difference in the molecular weight of my sample and the material is not that much pure. If you are getting this type of curve in DSC, after melting there is a decomposition, you can read. And if you are getting this type of curve for your pharmaceutical sample, then you can say that eutectic impurity is present in your sample. So effect of hydrogen bonding, if you increase the hydrogen bonding, you're melting. Now you're talking about effect on melting. Your melting increases. If you increase the molecular weight, your melting is going to increase. So this is how a typical DSC curve looks. A glass transition temperature, a crystallization temperature, and a melting temperature. And you get a melting peak, a heat of crystallization, crystallization peak, a heat of crystallization, melting peak, and heat of melting using the DSC curves. I think I will stop here because if you go for a TMA and all, it will take another few minutes. So, ma'am, I can stop here. I can take questions.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now that there are so many questions
yes,
to this
I'm ready.
should I
stop
session.
Increasing? Yeah. Okay.
So the question answer session is handed over to Dr. Ayesha. Over to you, Dr. Ayesha, ma'am.
Thank you, Mukula. Ma'am, we have a few questions for you. So let's begin with Mukula's question. Does the heating rate affect on the analysis of a TG experiment?
Yes. See, actually, I have. You're talking about TG or DSC right now?
Mukula,
TGA or any thermal analysis, like when we are heating it.
Yes. See, I'll show you one thing. What happened, let's talk about TGA first. Actually, I have very beautiful slides over there, but I could not display it. Okay. What happened, if you increase the TGA heating rate, you are heating your sample very fast. In that case, it's a dynamic process. You are continuously heating your sample, and your material, your sensor is recording the weight loss. So when your material is, your sensor is recording the weight loss, and if you are using a 40 degrees centigrade heating rate, then by the time the material senses its weight, your machine also reads the temperature also. So your temperature have reached, let's say 200 degrees centigrade, but actually your sensor have recorded the weight change at 160 degrees centigrade. If you allow me, I have a very beautiful slides to show you that. Till that we can take next question. I'll show you this slide, effect of heating rate for you. I can take next question for that.
Yes, Dr. Narendra,
okay,
you can unmute and
Yeah, can you see here, Ayesha?
Yes, ma'am, we can see it. Yes,
Yeah?
LDP.
Yeah. See
Yes,
now,
ma'am.
if you see that blue thing is having 20 degrees centigrade and green thing is having 40 degrees centigrade. Now the onset of degradation shifted because of the heating rate. 20 degrees shift in the heating. See, for a blue curve, onset is here. Oh, sorry, so sorry. And for the green curve, because I have heated it at 80 degrees and 40 degrees centigrade, the onset is shifted. Okay? Can you see it?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am.
Yes,
It is
ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next question. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Narendra, you can quickly ask your question on the TG, please.
Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, madam. This was a very informative session. So I have first question regarding this DSC. So normally the cycle which is followed, suppose I have an unknown sample or either a thermoset or a thermoplastic. So usually if it's a combination of both, say like a thermoset, thermoplastic. So I don't know whether it will have a TG as well as endotherm, and in the cooling cycle, exotherm and the related side things. So how do I set the normal conditions? Means say normally if I have the melting point, if I know something like a PTFE or something like that, I know that the melting is so and so and this thing yeah, minus temperature is so and so and the plus temperature so and so, then I can define. So what do I do for that?
Yeah. So first thing is that if I understood, you are talking about a mixture of thermoset for thermoplastic, right?
Correct.
Okay. So first, for DSC to do, you should know a degradation temperature of that your material. Now, if you in a DSC cycle, when you heat the thermoset material, you will get thermoset is the material when you heat it, it cross-linked, and then if you cool it or reheat, nothing will happen to that. Correct. Now, if you take a first heat in a DSC, if your thermoset material is not cured fully, or if it is having a glass transition temperature, it will give you a glass transition. And suppose you are having a thermoplastic material, which will having melting after your thermoset material. Then the presence of your thermoset material will affect the melting of your thermoplastic material. Your thermoplastic material will melt because the impurity is present either lower or longer, because you don't know where your impurity is impurity. I'm talking about thermoset material right now, where whether your impurity is get into the lamella thickness or it is rejected by the polymer while crystallizing it. So when it melts thermoplastic material, its melting is affected because of the presence of your thermoset material. Now, suppose you take a melting of that, you will not be able to identify what your exactly thermoplastic material is. Usually, do you have any particular application in your mind and you are asking this question so that I can ask you? But if you, let me finish my thing first. If you cool that material, thermoplastic material will crystallize. But there again, your impurity of your thermoset material is present in that mixture. So it will crystallize at the lower yes, it will crystallize it at higher temperature than that of its pure material.
Okay,
so you can see the
yeah, we do have some materials which are unknown. So what usually I do is I just run a blank, so I just get to know the extreme ranges, the temperature range, then I run the cool heat run cycle. And yeah, one more question, like as it's normally in DSC you follow a heat, cool and heat run cycle, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So normally for the glass transition temperature, which is the correct one? Is it the first heat or the second heat?
Glass transition temperature, second heat is the correct one, because polymer remembers its history. Suppose you crystallize your polymer from solution or you melt crystallize it remembers its history. And during first heat of the DSC curve, it will show you the history of its previous, what is happened to it polymer. Now, when you do the second heat, now polymer also remembers its history. What it remembers? It has crystallized from the melt, because in a first heat you have melted, then you have cooled it with a controlled cooling, and then you are heating it in a second time with the same whatever heating rate you are heating. So if you want to find out the true TG of your sample, always report or consider the second heating TG, because then you will be comparing the same history ka sample.
Okay, but say by chance I get a TG in the first heat run and the second I don't get. So is it that there's no TG?
No. If in a second you don't get, because see, TG is an inherent property of the material. It should gain. You should be able to get it in how many times you heat it, because it's an inherent property of the material. If you don't get in a second heat, something is wrong, because then whatever TG you are getting in the first heat, maybe because of the plasticization effect, solvent effect, water, because water also goes in a DSC like TG. It's a any second order transition rather than TG. So
Okay.
TG you should get in a both in always any heat. That's what I see. If your material is not getting cured in the melt,
Okay.
if you are heating the material, and if you get the first TG, and if you are not getting the TG in the second heating, does it mean that your material is getting cured? It getting cross-linked
Okay.
during
Yeah.
heating? No? That could be, yeah. Polymer is a very complicated system. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. I just have a couple of questions for TGA.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank
Narendra, you can post your questions. Ma'am, we have few more questions for you. So what we...
No problem.
So we can send the questions to her by email so that she can answer them. Thank you very much, ma'am. It was really nice talk. So now we are having a break for the lunch, and after lunch, exactly at 1:40, we are going to start with our next session. So all of you, please have a break for lunch till 1:40. We will be coming back to you at 1:40 sharp. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am, for the
Thank you
session.
very much. Woohoo! Teamwork. Teamwork.
Yeah,
Yes,
so the
stop sharing.
yeah, so I think the participants can also leave, ma'am, right? So that
She forgot
Nilima
to
Razurka.
stop sharing.
Yeah.
I will take.
So we can also have a break for this meeting. Is
Yes,
it okay, ma'am?
sure.
Yeah. So I think Anupa, ma'am, you can stop this meeting. We
Yes,
can
yeah.
we
So
can
at
start
what
it
time?
at 1:40 sharp. We are beginning with the next session. So the participants will join at 1:40 sharp after lunch. मॅडम मीटिंग एंड करता येईल का अनुपम मॅडम?
हा मी ट्राय करते कारण माझा लॅपटॉप बोंबललाय आणि मी
हो का?
सरांचा वापरतेय तर बघते मी
बरं,
आता
बरं.
काय आहे ते. हो आय विल एंड द मीटिंग.
Yes, please. So I'm writing in the chat box also that next session at